Welcome to the sleepy underworld, a place where romance blooms, magic sparkles, and timeless fairy tales are reimagined for the dreamers of today. From heart-stirring romances to spellbinding adventures, every story is a soothing escape into a realm of love, wonder, and charm. So curl up, press play, and let us carry you away to the land of dreams. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. We'd love to know in what part of the world you are watching and what is your favorite tip for a good night's sleep. Thank you for watching and enjoy the video. The lavender-scented moisturizer lingered on my fingertips as I smoothed out Carter's wish paper, its cotton-soft texture catching slightly against my work-roughened hands. The translucent purple paper, decorated with tiny silver stars, had been Carter's special choice at the craft store. Perfect for magic, he'd declared with the absolute certainty that only a 6-year-old could possess. "This one's extra special, Mama," he whispered, his minty, fresh breath ghosting across my cheek as he carefully dropped the paper into our wish jar. The glass caught the warm glow of his constellation nightlight, creating a dance of tiny prisms across his bedroom walls. The jar had become our sanctuary of dreams in the past year, half full with dozens of carefully folded wishes. The evening air carried the sweet perfume of night-blooming jasmine through his cracked window. Our modest fifth-floor apartment might not have been much, but living next to Mrs. Santos's prized flower garden had blessed us with this small luxury. "They're all special, sweetheart," I murmured, running my fingers through his bath-damp curls that smelled of honey vanilla shampoo, the one he insisted made him smell like cookies. What had started as a way to help him process his feelings after his father left had evolved into something more profound, our private magic that transformed tears into possibilities. I pulled a fresh sheet of star-speckled paper out, cool and smooth against my palm. "What should Mama wish for tonight?" Carter's deep brown eyes sparkled in the soft light. "Something big. Something amazing." The layoff notice burned in my pocket, its crisp edges a reminder of how quickly security could crumble. "Company restructuring effective immediately," echoed in my mind like a cruel mantra. My fingers trembled as I held the paper, but I steadied them before Carter noticed. 8 weeks of savings stood between us and uncertainty, with rent due in just 3 weeks. The scratch of my pen against paper felt unnaturally loud as I wrote, "A way to keep our home filled with love and laughter." Each letter flowed in my best handwriting, a prayer disguised as a wish, vague enough not to worry Carter, but specific enough to hold my desperate hope. That night, after tucking Carter beneath his rocket ship comforter and ensuring his worn soft teddy bear was securely in his arms, I retreated to my room. The hardwood floor creaked beneath my feet as I settled cross-legged on my bed, cradling the wish jar in my lap. The glass felt cool and weighted, its surface decorated with tiny raised stars that Carter had insisted on adding with glass paint, creating our own private constellation. One by one, I unfolded his wishes, each crisp sound echoing in the quiet room. Moonlight streamed through my gauzy curtains, illuminating his childish handwriting. "I wish to be an astronaut and see the whole Earth from space and count all the stars. I wish Mama never has to cry when she thinks I'm sleeping because the walls are too thin. I wish we could stay in our apartment forever, because it's where all our memories are and where I learned to ride my bike in the hallway. I wish for someone to love Mama the way she deserves, someone who makes her laugh like she does when we have pillow fights." Tears welled up and spilled over as I read, one perfect droplet falling into the jar. As it hit the bottom, something extraordinary happened. The tear caught the moonlight and seemed to multiply, creating a cascade of shimmer that filled the jar with a pearl-like luminescence. I blinked hard, convinced exhaustion was playing tricks on my eyes. But as I went to close the jar, a warm breeze swept through the room, despite the closed windows. It carried the scent of jasmine, my namesake flower, mixed with something else, something that reminded me of starlight and possibility. The air wrapped around me like a gentle embrace, carrying the faintest whisper of wind chimes from somewhere distant. The magic unfolded the very next morning. Mrs. Santos caught me by the mailboxes, her silver hair catching the sunlight as she practically danced with excitement about her brother Antonio's new marketing firm downtown. They needed someone with exactly my experience. Then came the message from Thomas Rivera, my old college friend, about an amazing project with great pay and flexible hours. The property manager called about a rent reduction program, and my struggling Toyota suddenly purred to life after Carter patted its hood and whispered, "Be nice to Mama, please. We need you." But the real magic revealed itself when I met Jacob Wyman at Antonio's firm. His hazel eyes held flecks of gold that danced when he smiled, creating the same warmth as Carter's nightlight. During my interview, he didn't just see my portfolio. He saw me and understood the story behind every carefully crafted campaign and community initiative. The job offer came with a salary that made my hands tremble as I signed the contract. But Jacob turned out to be more than my new boss. He was a single father to Luna, a creative 6-year-old who shared Carter's capacity for wonder. Our families intertwined naturally, like stars forming a new constellation. Weekend playdates evolved into family dinners, where the aroma of Jacob's homemade pasta sauce filled my small kitchen, mixing with children's laughter and soft jazz. Luna turned my refrigerator into an art gallery while Carter transformed our living room into a space station. And Jacob filled the spaces we hadn't even realized were empty. One evening, as we sat on my small balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in amber and rose, Jacob's warm hand found mine, his fingers slightly rough from weekend woodworking projects fitting perfectly between my own. The touch sent electricity dancing up my arm and settling somewhere near my heart. "Luna asked me something interesting today," he said softly, the dying sunlight catching those gold flecks in his eyes. "Oh." My voice barely rose above a whisper. "She wanted to know if we could be a real family, all 4 of us. She said it feels like we're missing puzzle pieces that finally found one another." My heart performed a complicated gymnastic routine. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that some of the best families are the ones we choose for ourselves." His thumb traced patterns on my palm that sent shivers down my spine. "And I'd choose this. Choose you and Carter every single time." That night, after Jacob and Luna left, their warmth lingering in our apartment like a favorite song, Carter pulled out the wish jar. The glass caught the light differently now, seeming to hold shadows and starlight in equal measure. "Mama, look," he gasped, his voice filled with wonder. The jar was glowing with a soft, golden light that pulsed like a heartbeat. As we watched, breathless, Carter reached in and pulled out one of his old wishes. The paper had transformed into something ethereal, like starlight given form, with a texture somewhere between silk and morning dew. "I wish for someone to love Mama the way she deserves," he read proudly, the words shimmering in the air. "See? The jar is magic, just like I always told you." I gathered him in my arms, breathing in the sweet mixture of cookie-scented shampoo and ever-present jasmine. His small body fitted against mine perfectly, his little heart beating a rhythm that matched my own. "You know what, sweetheart? I think you might be right, but the real magic isn't in the jar. It's in believing that good things are possible, even when they seem impossible." Carter looked up at me with that ancient wisdom that sometimes took my breath away. "That's why we keep wishing, right, Mama? Because anything can happen if you believe?" "That's right, baby." I kissed his forehead, thinking of Jacob's gentle hands and warm laugh, Luna's artistic spirit and generous heart, Mrs. Santos's timely kindness, and all the small miracles that had led us here. And sometimes, the most magical wishes are the ones we didn't even know we needed to make. Later that night, as moonlight painted silver patterns on my wall, I added a new wish to the jar. May our hearts always stay open to magic. The paper seemed to glow as it settled among the others, and I could have sworn I heard the faint sound of wind chimes again. Years have passed, and the wish jar still sits on Carter's bedside table, catching light and storing dreams. Some wishes still wait to unfold, while others have blossomed in ways we never expected. Now when Carter tells me the jar is magic, I don't just smile and nod. I believe him. Because magic isn't about getting exactly what you wish for. It's about being open to the possibility that life has something even better in store. As I write this final wish and watch it settle among the others, I feel the love that surrounds us. Carter's unwavering belief, Luna's creative spirit, Jacob's steady devotion, and the countless kindnesses that carried us through our darkest times. Perhaps that's the greatest magic of all. Not the granting of wishes, but the way hope can transform tears into starlight, strangers into family, and an ordinary glass jar into a vessel of infinite possibilities. The jar's soft glow fills our home now, a constant reminder that sometimes the most powerful magic comes not from supernatural forces, but from the simple act of believing in better days. Each night, as I watch Carter and Luna add their wishes to our collection, their hands intertwined and their eyes bright with shared secrets, I'm reminded that true magic lives in the quiet moments between heartbeats, in the space between wishes, and in the love that turns ordinary glass into a container of dreams. And in those moments, I know with absolute certainty that some wishes don't need a jar to come true. They just need hearts brave enough to believe in their own magic. I never expected to find love in a world made of candy, but that's exactly what happened the night exhaustion finally caught up with me at my pastry workbench. The sharp scent of lemon zest still clung to my fingers, mixing with the warm vanilla and toasted sugar that perpetually perfumed my kitchen. My latest creation, an elaborate wedding cake with hand-painted fondant flowers, sat half-finished before me, and its empty tiers were a reminder of all the work still ahead. The gentle hum of the refrigerators lulled me into what I thought would be just a moment's rest. Instead, my eyes fluttered open to an extraordinary sight that made me question my sanity. Gone was my sterile industrial kitchen with its stainless steel and fluorescent lights. In its place stretched a meadow that defied reality. Flowers bloomed with cotton candy petals and marshmallow centers, their stems crafted from twisted green licorice that swayed in a breeze scented with strawberry and cream. The grass beneath my feet consisted of fine strands of green apple taffy that released their tart fragrance with each step. In the distance, mountains of shimmering rock candy pierced clouds that looked suspiciously like freshly whipped cream, their crystalline faces catching the light of what appeared to be a sun made entirely of spun sugar. The air felt different, lighter and sweeter, carrying the mingled aromas of every dessert I'd ever loved. I reached out to touch a nearby flower, wondering if the stress of running my bakery had finally broken something essential in my brain. The cotton candy petal dissolved on my tongue with a familiar sweetness that brought unexpected tears to my eyes. When was the last time I'd allowed myself to simply enjoy the taste of something sweet? These days, every creation was about precision, about perfection, about maintaining my reputation as the city's most innovative pastry chef. Beautiful, isn't it? The voice startled me from my reverie. I turned to find a man standing nearby, his dark eyes wide with the same wonder I felt as he took in our surroundings. He wore a wrinkled dress shirt, with the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms dusted with what looked like graphite smudges. His burgundy tie hung loose around his neck, and his black hair had the disheveled look of someone who'd been running their fingers through it in frustration. In his hands, he clutched an architectural model, its tiny candy-themed elements precisely crafted. "I'm Isabella," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded despite the surreal situation. And you are? Theo, he replied, offering a warm smile that made something flutter in my chest. I was just working on designs for a candy-themed amusement park when I must have dozed off. The client wants something whimsical but profitable, whatever that means. His gentle, self-deprecating laugh sparked something in me, a recognition of another soul trapped between creativity and commerce. Before I could respond, the air shimmered like heat waves over warm caramel, and a small figure waddled toward us. It was a gingerbread person, complete with perfectly piped frosting buttons and a hat crafted from a perfectly formed gumdrop. The scent of ginger and molasses wafted around us as it moved. "Welcome to Sugarvale," the cookie announced in a voice that reminded me of warm honey drizzled over fresh scones. "You've been chosen for a very special adventure." The frosting forming its mouth moved as naturally as any human's, though the physics of this should have been impossible. The gingerbread guide explained that we needed to complete a series of challenges to find our way home. As Theo and I exchanged glances, I saw my mix of anxiety and excitement reflected in his eyes. Neither of us seemed entirely convinced this wasn't some sort of shared hallucination. But what choice did we have? Our first challenge brought us to Peppermint Valley, where candy cane trees grew in mesmerizing spiral patterns, their red stripes gleaming like fresh paint. We raced down the slopes on sleds made of crystallized peppermint, the sharp menthol scent filling our lungs with each breath. I hadn't felt such pure joy since I was a child, especially when Theo's sled spun out of control and landed in a snowbank of powdered sugar. He emerged laughing, the white powder dusting his dark hair and eyelashes like the world's sweetest snowfall. The caramel canyon tested our courage and creativity. A river of bubbling butterscotch flowed far below, releasing waves of buttery warmth that made my mouth water. The existing licorice rope bridge had gaps that needed repair, and this is where Theo's architectural expertise truly shone. He carefully constructed new sections from pulled caramel, his hands moving with the same precision I recognized from my own work with sugar. "Trust me," he said, holding out his hand as we crossed. His palm felt warm against mine, slightly rough with calluses that spoke of hands-on work, despite his professional appearance. I did trust him, and not just because we were suspended above a river of molten candy. There was something in his eyes that spoke of dependability, of someone who understood the importance of both dreams and details. The gumdrop gardens presented a different kind of challenge, with massive fruit-flavored tiles that needed to be rotated to create safe paths. Each tile released its scent when touched: grape, cherry, orange, lime, creating an ever-changing symphony of fruit flavors. Theo's logical mind complemented my intuitive approach perfectly. While he analyzed patterns, I followed the scents that we hoped would lead toward our goal. When we finally reached the center, we collapsed onto a bench made of compressed jelly beans, breathless and giddy. The bench slowly molded to our shapes, providing surprisingly comfortable support. The air was perfumed with subtle floral notes, rose, violet, and lavender, offering a gentle respite from the intense fruit flavors of the maze. "You know," Theo said softly, his shoulder pressed warmly against mine, "I haven't felt this alive in years. My firm keeps pushing me to design more practical, efficient buildings. Glass boxes and steel frames. I'd forgotten how much I love creating spaces that spark joy." I understood completely. My bakery started as a dream to make people happy through desserts. Now it's all about Instagram-worthy designs and celebrity clients. I can't remember the last time I baked something just because it made me smile. The admission felt like pulling a thorn from my heart, one I hadn't even known was there. As we progressed through more challenges, our connection deepened. Theo showed me how to build structurally sound towers from tempered chocolate blocks, while I taught him the secret to crafting perfect spun sugar decorations. We shared stories of our lives, his childhood spent building elaborate structures from anything he could find, my grandmother's kitchen where I first learned to bake. Each challenge brought us closer until the simple brush of his hand against mine sent sparks through my entire body. The licorice mountain loomed before us, its black surface gleaming like polished obsidian. We needed to reach its peak, but the twisting paths seemed impossible to navigate. Together, we crafted a ladder from giant lollipops, their swirled surfaces providing surprisingly stable footing. We supported one another both physically and emotionally as we climbed, sharing encouragement and strength. At the summit, exhausted but triumphant, Theo pulled me close. The wind carried the scent of wild berries and possibility. When our lips met, the kiss tasted of adventure and hope, and something uniquely us. His arms around me felt like coming home, even in this strange candy wonderland. Finally, we reached the Sugar Palace, its crystalline walls refracting rainbow lights that danced across our skin. The structure defied physics with delicate spun sugar supports that held up massive panels of clear crystal candy. But our awe turned to despair when the gingerbread guide revealed a cruel twist. Only one of us could return home. The thought of leaving this world without Theo was too much to bear, but so was the idea of him sacrificing his life for me. "You have to go," Theo insisted, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Your bakery needs you, and your staff depends on you for their livelihoods." I shook my head fiercely. "No, you should go. You have clients depending on you, projects that need to be completed." The words felt hollow even as I spoke them, knowing that neither of our careers mattered as much as what we'd found together. We argued back and forth, each trying to sacrifice our chance for the other. At that moment, I realized I'd fallen completely in love with this kind, creative man who approached every challenge with both logic and wonder. He saw the world as I did, a place where magic and practicality coexisted. The palace walls shimmered like caramelized sugar, and our guide reappeared with a knowing smile that crinkled the frosting around its eyes. "The final test was never about choosing who returns," they explained, their voice warm with approval. "It was about discovering what matters most. Love is the greatest magic of all." The walls dissolved in a shower of sparkles that tasted like spun sugar and starlight, and I felt myself falling. I woke up at my workbench, my heart heavy with the fading memory of a dream. But as I lifted my head, something impossible met my eyes. Across from me sat Theo, blinking awake in confusion. Between us was a plate of perfectly formed macaroons in pastel colors, each one decorated with tiny designs that matched the challenges we'd faced. A note written in a sparkling golden script read, "Love is the sweetest adventure." 1 year later, our bakery, Sugarvale, is thriving. We create desserts that bring joy and wonder to everyone who visits, though none are quite as magical as the world where we fell in love. Our signature collection features candies and pastries inspired by our journey, Peppermint Valley swirl cookies, Caramel Canyon bars, and our most popular item, Cotton Candy Cloud 9, a delicate confection that dissolves on the tongue, just like those first flowers I tasted in the meadow. Sometimes, late at night as we're cleaning up, Theo pulls me into a dance among the display cases. As we twirl past our creations, I swear I catch the scent of cotton candy flowers and hear the distant laughter of a gingerbread guide. In these moments, I'm reminded that the sweetest dreams aren't the ones we have while sleeping. They're the ones we build together, one loving moment at a time. Every now and then, a customer will comment on the unusual warmth and joy they feel in our shop. Theo and I just share a secret smile, knowing that we've managed to bring a little bit of Sugarvale's magic into the real world, not through any supernatural means, but through the simple power of two people who remembered how to dream. Moonbeams danced across my gossamer wings as I floated through the masquerade, my fairy costume catching starlight with each step. Candlelight flickered against crystal chandeliers, casting shadows that waltzed along marble walls. I hadn't wanted to come to this Halloween party, but something Destiny, perhaps, had pulled me here tonight. My best friend Sophie had insisted, spending hours helping me create my costume. Hand-painted wings that shimmered with actual crushed crystals, a gown that seemed woven from morning mist, and a crown of fresh herbs from my tiny apartment garden. The Victorian mansion hosting the party breathed old-world elegance. Vines crept up stone walls outside, and I'd noticed a neglected garden glimpsed through floor-to-ceiling windows. My fingers had itched to bring it back to life, to coax green things from the sleeping earth. That's what I did, brought beauty back to forgotten spaces. My day job as a landscape designer paid the bills, but my true passion lay in healing herbs and the ancient magic of growing things. Weaving between guests in their elaborate costumes, I caught his gaze from across the grand ballroom. Amber eyes gleamed beneath an artfully crafted werewolf mask, dark fur framing a face that seemed to hold ancient secrets. His presence commanded attention without demanding it, a quiet power that drew me like a moth to flame. The wolf costume wasn't the typical Halloween store variety. It looked handmade, with actual leather work and what appeared to be real fur. Leaves and small twigs had been woven into the design, creating the impression of a creature that had just emerged from some enchanted forest. Our eyes locked through our masks, and the bustling party faded to whispers around us. He moved toward me with fluid grace that belied his fierce costume, weaving through the crowd as if drawn by an invisible thread. A subtle scent of cedar and sage surrounded him, so different from the cologne other men wore. "I'm Raphael," he said, his voice rich as honey over warm bread. His slight accent hinted at Mediterranean roots. "And you're the most enchanting fairy I've ever seen. The rosemary in your crown. It's the Spanish variety, isn't it? Rare in these parts." Heat bloomed in my cheeks beneath the shimmer of fairy dust makeup Sophie had insisted on. "Gina," I managed, grateful the glitter hid my blush. "Though tonight I'm going by Thistle. And yes, good eye. The rosemary came from my own plants. Most people wouldn't notice the difference." "Thistle," he repeated, tasting the name. "Perfect for a garden fairy. Beautiful but with hidden strength. Protection and pride in the language of flowers." My pulse quickened. "You know the language of flowers?" "Among other old magics," he said, his eyes twinkling behind the mask. "Your herbs. The rosemary for remembrance, lavender for peace and devotion woven through your hair. The tiny sachets of protective herbs tucked into your costume seams. You practice the old ways." I caught my breath, surprised and delighted. "How did you know all that?" "The same way I sense the garden magic running through your veins. It calls to my own." He gestured to his costume. "The wolf represents more than meets the eye. In the old stories, we were the guardians of wild places, of ancient groves and hidden gardens." The music swelled around us, something classical and sweeping. Raphael extended his hand, somehow elegant despite the claws of his costume. "Dance with me? We can trade garden secrets while we move." Floating. That's how it felt as we moved together, my wings catching moonlight while his fur gleamed silver. Other couples blurred around us as we spoke of plants and poetry, of the magic that lives in small moments. His knowledge of herbs matched my passion for growing things. He knew the old names, the folk uses, the secret ways of planting by moon phases. "I restore gardens," he said as we waltzed. "Take old estates and bring their green spaces back to life. But my land, it needs something more. Someone with vision, with magic in their soul." "How much land?" I asked, attempting to sound casual while every cell within me vibrated with excitement. "An acre behind my grandfather's old stone cottage. Good earth. Just sleeping. Waiting." His eyes held mine. "It needs both sunlight and shadow to thrive properly." Dreams blossomed in my mind, raised beds overflowing with healing herbs, moonflowers climbing trellises, paths winding through beds of lavender. "Like a fairy and a wolf?" I suggested, surprising myself with my boldness. Raphael's smile beneath his mask held promises. Exactly like that. We danced through the night, sharing stories between songs. He told me of his Italian grandmother who taught him herb craft, of the gardens he'd restored across Europe before settling here. I shared tales of my own grandmother's teaching, the tiny fire escape garden that had sparked my passion, and the healing teas and tinctures I crafted in my kitchen. Dawn approached too quickly, painting the sky in watercolor hues. As the other guests began to leave, we lingered in the mansion's own neglected garden, trading secrets between overgrown rose bushes and whispered hopes beneath weeping willows. When he kissed me, the stars seemed to shimmer brighter overhead. His mask pushed up, mine tilted aside. The moment was pure magic. "Come see my land tomorrow," he whispered against my hair. "Bring your fairy magic. We could create something extraordinary together." The next day dawned crisp and clear. I dressed carefully. Sturdy boots, comfortable clothes, but I wove herbs into my braided hair for luck and protection. Raphael met me wearing well-worn work clothes, looking somehow equally handsome as he had in his wolf costume. His land took my breath away. The cottage was built from honey-colored stone, with climbing roses that had gone wild around the windows. The acre behind it sloped gently toward a small stream, perfect for a water garden. Old fruit trees dotted the landscape, their branches reaching for the sky like gnarled fingers. Weeks passed quickly after that first weekend. We spent our days planning and planting, transforming his wild acre into something from a fairy tale. Raphael built raised beds while I researched companion planting. We argued playfully over where to place the herb spiral, then celebrated each tiny seedling that pushed through the rich soil. Our garden became our sanctuary. Moonflowers and night-blooming jasmine for him, morning glories, and sun-loving herbs for me. We planted motherwort for love, roses for romance, and lavender for peace. Between the rows, our love grew like wild roses, unstoppable and beautiful, thorns and all. Each section of the garden held its own magic. The healing garden was filled with medicinal herbs: echinacea, yarrow, calendula, and chamomile. The kitchen garden overflowed with culinary herbs and old varieties of vegetables. The magical garden held the traditional witches' herbs: mugwort, wormwood, rue, and belladonna, carefully tended and respected. Raphael built archways for climbing plants, his strong hands shaping metal into elegant curves. I created moon gardens in shadowy corners, filling them with white flowers that glowed in twilight. Together we placed benches in secret nooks and created hidden paths that wound like dreams through the growing green. Spring painted our world with possibilities. We spent endless weekends working side by side, sharing thermos cups of tea and stolen kisses between tasks. Raphael taught me Italian plant names while we worked. I showed him my grandmother's secret ways of talking to plants. Our magics merged and grew stronger together. We created hidden nooks with curved benches, where we'd sit wrapped in blankets during midnight storms. Wind chimes sang silver songs while butterflies danced through dill flowers. Raphael carved protection runes into the garden gates, while I blessed each new planting with ancient whispered rhymes learned from my grandmother. The garden seemed to respond to our combined energy. Plants grew stronger, bloomed longer, and produced more abundantly than either of us had seen before. Visitors began to comment on the special feeling of the space, a sense of peace, of magic, of possibilities. Summer arrived with abundance. Together we harvested herbs by moonlight, his strength complementing my knowledge of drying times and storage. Our little cottage filled with bundles of herbs hanging from rafters, their fragrance wrapping around us like magic. We made medicines and teas, tinctures and treats, sharing our bounty with neighbors who soon spoke of the miraculous healing properties of our herbs. I gave up my apartment and moved into the cottage, bringing my own herbs and books to join his. We converted the spare bedroom into an herb processing room, with drying racks and storage shelves. The kitchen windowsill overflowed with potted herbs, and dried bouquets hung from every beam. Neighborhood children began to visit, drawn by the magic of the space. We taught them about butterflies and bees, and the importance of growing things. Local herbalists and gardeners sought us out, and soon we were hosting monthly gatherings where people could learn and share knowledge. Autumn painted our garden in gold and amber, colors that matched Raphael's eyes. As leaves fell, we planted bulbs for spring, each one a promise for our future. We added cold frames and greenhouses, extending our growing season like we extended our love, defying natural limits through dedication and care. The cottage transformed alongside the garden. Raphael's grandfather's old furniture found new life with fresh cushions I sewed, stuffing the fabric with lavender and herbs for sweet dreams. We painted walls in earthy colors and hung dried flower wreaths in every room. The kitchen became a workshop where we experimented with new herbal blends and recipes. Even in winter, our garden lived. Evergreen herbs stood strong against snow. Witch hazel bloomed like yellow stars. We spent long evenings by the fire, planning next year's plantings while sharing spiced tea made from our own herbs. The wolf and the fairy, creating magic from soil and love. 1 year after our first meeting, on Halloween night, Raphael led me to the garden's heart. He'd created an arch of roses and moonflowers, their blooms glowing like pearls in the silver light. This time, we wore no masks, just our true selves, surrounded by the magic we'd grown together. "You've transformed more than this garden," he said, dropping to one knee in the soil we'd enriched together. The ring he offered gleamed in the moonlight, silver, set with tiny pressed herbs in clear resin. "You've transformed my whole world. Marry me, my fairy queen. Rule this magical realm by my side." Tears sparkled on my cheeks like morning dew. "We did it together," I whispered. The garden needed both of us, sunlight and shadow, morning and night, fairy and wolf. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Our wedding was held in the garden we'd created, fairy lights twinkling in trees we'd planted together. Herbs and flowers we'd grown ourselves decorated every surface. I wore a gown embroidered with herbs and flowers, and Raphael wore a suit with a boutonniere of herbs for love and fidelity. The air smelled of lavender and roses, of dreams made real through patience and love. We wrote our own vows, promising to tend to our love as carefully as we tended our garden, to nurture growth, to weather storms together, to always make space for magic. Our rings were carved with tiny leaves and flowers, blessed under the full moon in our herb garden. Now, years later, our garden has become known throughout the region as a place of healing and hope. People travel from miles around to walk our herb-lined paths, to sit in our meditation spaces, and purchase our healing blends. Some say they can feel the magic in the air, the love between fairy and wolf that infuses every plant, every stone. We've added new sections each year, a butterfly garden, a bee-friendly meadow, and a small orchard of heritage fruit trees. Each addition reflects another facet of our growing love, another layer of magic we've discovered together. The garden has become a living book of our love story, written in flowers and herbs and twining vines. Each Halloween, we host a masquerade in our garden. Raphael wears his wolf mask, I don my wings, and we dance beneath the stars like we did that first night. But now we're surrounded by the magic we've grown together, a living testament to how love, like a garden, can transform the wildest space into something beautiful. Young lovers often ask us our secret. We just smile and share what we've learned. Love, like a garden, needs both light and shadow. It needs space to grow wild and boundaries to grow strong. It needs daily tending and magic in equal measure. But most importantly, it needs two hearts willing to grow together through all seasons. Every morning, I still wake to find dew on the herbs like scattered diamonds. Every evening, I still watch moonflowers open their faces to the stars. And every moment between, I fall more in love with the wolf who helped a fairy create this magical space. This garden, where two worlds merge into something more powerful than either could be alone. Our cottage has grown too, with a sunroom full of tender plants and a workshop where we teach others the old ways. We've published books on herbal lore and magical gardening, sharing our knowledge while keeping the deepest magic for ourselves. Our unique blends of tea and healing herbs are sought after across the country. Some say you can't build a life on fairy tales, but Raphael and I know better. We've grown our own fairy tale from the ground up, nurtured it with love and intention, and watched it bloom into something more magical than dreams. Our garden stands as living proof that when the right souls meet, magic isn't something that just happens in stories. It grows wild and free, like herbs breaking through stone, like love blooming in unexpected places, like a fairy and a wolf creating their own enchanted world. Each season brings new growth, new challenges, and new magic to discover together. Our love, like our garden, continues to evolve and flourish, sending roots deep into the earth while reaching ever skyward. Sleep now, dream of magical gardens and masked balls, of love that transforms and grows. For in every seed we plant, in every flower that blooms, there lives the possibility of magic. Let the whispers of herbs and the song of night-blooming flowers guide your dreams to peaceful places. Beneath the moon's gentle glow, our garden whispers ancient secrets. True love, like the most potent herbs, grows stronger with each passing season. And if you listen closely to the wind in the roses, you might hear our story carried on the breeze, the fairy and the wolf who grew a paradise from love. Rest here a while in our garden of dreams, where magic blooms eternal and love grows wild and free. Let the peace we've cultivated seep into your soul, and may you find your own magical garden of the heart. For in the end, love is the greatest magic of all, and every garden holds the potential for transformation. Sweet dreams, dear ones, and remember, sometimes the most enchanted stories begin with a simple costume party and a heart open to magic. I used to believe beauty was a shield that could protect me from life's cruelties. Standing before my vanity in my darkened bedroom, I traced the silvery scars that now decorated my face like scattered constellations. My fingers lingered over my right eye, permanently clouded, a constant reminder of the night that changed everything. I, Cardigan Matthews, once crowned the most beautiful woman in 3 states, could barely look at my own reflection. The doctors had done their best after the accident. "A miracle you survived," they'd said, as if that should comfort me when half my face lay in ruins. The same people who had once fawned over me now spoke in whispers, their pity more unbearable than their judgment. My modeling agency dropped me. My so-called friends stopped calling. Even my fiancé couldn't hide his relief when I broke off our engagement. The autumn wind whispered through the ancient trees of Moonhaven Village as I pulled my hood closer, shielding my face from curious glances. 6 months had passed since I'd fled here, leaving behind the glittering world of beauty pageants and social media fame. In this remote corner of the world, where mist clung to the mountains and legends still danced in the shadows, nobody knew my name or my story. I preferred it that way. The bell above the door chimed softly as I entered the local apothecary, seeking my monthly supply of healing salves. The shop always captured my imagination. Dried herbs hanging from rough-hewn beams, bottles of every shape and size catching the light like captured stars, and the perpetual scent of sage and sweetgrass dancing in the air. Ancient books lined the walls, their spines bearing titles in languages I couldn't read, and crystals hummed with a subtle energy I'd grown to recognize during my visits. Ah, the mysterious lady returns. The voice, warm and rich like honey over thunder, belonged to Arlo, the enigmatic shopkeeper. I'd never seen anyone quite like him, tall and lean, with silver-streaked black hair that seemed to move of its own accord, and eyes that shifted color like opals in sunlight. His clothes, though simple, held an otherworldly elegance that spoke of places beyond the ordinary world. "Just the usual," I mumbled, keeping my face turned away. But Arlo, as always, moved into my line of sight with the grace of a cat. Today his eyes swirled with flecks of amber and gold, reflecting the warm light of dozens of enchanted lanterns that floated near the ceiling. "The usual isn't working, is it?" he asked softly. "Those scars carry more than physical pain. They bear the weight of a life interrupted, of dreams shattered like the mirrors you've hidden away." Something in his voice made me look up, really look at him for the first time. His eyes had settled on a deep violet, and within them, I saw not pity, but understanding. My carefully constructed walls began to crack. "Nothing works," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I've tried everything. Creams, serums, experimental treatments, even meditation and crystal healing. Nothing can erase what happened that night." "Perhaps," Arlo said, moving to a wall of bottles that seemed to arrange themselves at his approach. "You're trying to erase the wrong thing." He selected a crystal vial filled with what looked like liquid moonlight, its contents swirling with colors I had no names for. "This isn't for your scars, Cardigan Matthews." I froze at the sound of my name. "How did you—" "I know many things," he interrupted gently, "including the fact that what you seek isn't found in salves or potions. Your true healing lies in a journey, one I can help you take if you're brave enough." I should have been skeptical. I should have run. Instead, I found myself asking, "What kind of journey?" Arlo smiled, and the room seemed to brighten. The floating lanterns pulsed with increased warmth, and the crystals sang more clearly. A magical one, of course. Through realms where appearance means nothing, where truth shines brighter than any mirror, and where you might just find what you've lost, though it may not be what you think. "You're talking about actual magic? Like spells and enchantments?" "I'm talking about truth, Cardigan. The deepest kind of magic there is." He extended his hand, the vial balanced delicately between his fingers. "Are you interested?" I stared at the swirling liquid, remembering the countless treatments and procedures I'd already tried. "What's the catch?" "Only that you must trust me completely, and be willing to see yourself as you truly are. Not as others see you, or even as you see yourself now. The journey will be different for you than for anyone else who has taken it. Magic shapes itself to the soul that seeks it." Perhaps it was desperation, or maybe the hypnotic way the potion caught the light, but I found myself reaching for the vial. As my fingers brushed against his, a spark of electricity shot through my arm, and the liquid within the crystal container gleamed with my reflected face, whole and unscarred, yet somehow different from my former beauty. "When do we start?" I asked, my heart racing with possibility. "We already have." Arlo's smile turned mysterious as he gestured toward the back of the shop. The beaded curtain parted of its own accord, revealing a doorway that hadn't been there before. Beyond it lay not the expected storage room, but a path winding through a forest bathed in ethereal blue light. Ancient trees stretched toward a sky filled with unfamiliar stars, their branches intertwining to form natural archways overhead. My heart jumped into my throat. "Right now? Magic waits for no one, my dear." He offered his arm, and I noticed intricate patterns shifting beneath the surface of his skin, like living tattoos made of starlight. "Shall we?" Taking a deep breath, I slipped my hand into the crook of his elbow. As we stepped through the doorway, the familiar scents of the apothecary faded, replaced by the crisp sweetness of night-blooming jasmine and something else, something wild and ancient that made my skin tingle. The forest around us pulsed with life. Tiny lights, like earthbound stars, floated between the trees. The ground beneath our feet was carpeted with moss that glowed with each step, creating patterns that spread outward like ripples in a pond. Flowers I had never seen before bloomed in our wake, their petals transparent as glass, but stronger than steel. "Welcome to the Twilight Realm," Arlo said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Here, things are not always what they seem, and seeming is not always what is true. This is one of the many spaces between spaces, where magic flows more freely than water, and transformation is as natural as breathing." As if to demonstrate his point, a nearby bush suddenly transformed into a cluster of butterflies, their wings shimmering with impossible colors, before they dissolved into mist. The mist reformed into delicate crystal chimes that played melodies I felt in my bones, rather than heard with my ears. "Why are you helping me?" I asked, clutching his arm tighter as we followed the winding path deeper into the magical forest. "What could you possibly gain from this?" "Because everyone deserves to see their own light," he replied, helping me over a stream that flowed upward instead of down, its waters carrying memories that flickered like fish beneath the surface. "Even those who think it's been extinguished. Besides, you're not the first to seek transformation here, nor will you be the last. There have been others, many, though each journey is unique to the seeker." His expression darkened momentarily. "Some find what they're looking for. Others, well, let's say that not everyone is ready for the truth magic reveals." We walked in comfortable silence until we reached a clearing. In its center stood an ancient tree, its trunk twisted into the shape of a doorway. Through it, I could see what looked like my own reflection, but something was different. Deeper, more real than any mirror I'd ever looked into. "The mirror of truth," Arlo explained. "It shows not what you are, but what you believe yourself to be. Every person who steps before it sees something different, something that speaks to their deepest beliefs about themselves." I approached cautiously. The reflection that greeted me was grotesque. My scars appeared deeper, darker, like canyons carved into my flesh. My blind eye was a pit of darkness that seemed to swallow light, and shadows writhed across my skin like living things. "This is how you see yourself," Arlo said quietly, standing behind me. "But it's not what I see." "What do you see?" I whispered, unable to look away from the horrible image. Instead of answering, he stepped closer, his chest barely touching my back. His hands came to rest lightly on my shoulders, and suddenly the reflection began to change. The scars softened, becoming silver threads that caught the light like strands of precious metal. My blind eye transformed into a pool of swirling colors, like a galaxy contained within an iris. The shadows retreated, replaced by a gentle luminescence that seemed to emanate from within. "I see strength," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "I see someone who has endured pain, but hasn't let it break her. I see beauty that runs far deeper than skin, beauty that transforms rather than fades." Tears slid down my cheeks as the reflection continued to shift, showing me moments from my past. Not the pageant wins or modeling shots, but times I'd shown kindness to others, moments of genuine laughter, instances of courage I'd forgotten. I saw myself comforting a fellow contestant who'd lost a competition, teaching young girls about self-confidence, volunteering at shelters even when cameras weren't around. "The first step to healing," Arlo said, turning me gently to face him, "is understanding that your worth was never in your face. It was always in your heart, your spirit, your capacity for kindness and growth." Looking into his eyes, which had turned a soft gold in the magical light, I felt something shift inside me, like a key opening a lock I hadn't known existed. The world around us seemed to pulse in response, the magical energies of the realm dancing more vibrantly. Our magical journey continued through landscapes that defied description. We crossed a bridge made of woven moonbeams, where each step created ripples of light that spread out into the starlit void below. We visited a garden where flowers sang lullabies in ancient languages, their petals changing color with each note. In a crystal cave that amplified thoughts into visible shapes, Arlo taught me to craft simple spells. Magic, he explained, guiding my hands through the motions, is simply the art of seeing possibility where others see limitation. It's about understanding that everything, every person, every object, every moment, contains multiple truths, multiple potentials. As days blended into weeks, I found myself looking forward to our lessons, not just for the magic, but for Arlo's presence. He had a way of making me forget my scars, of helping me see beauty in unexpected places. When he looked at me, I felt whole again, not because he ignored my injuries, but because he helped me see how they had transformed rather than destroyed me. But it wasn't all enchantment and wonder. One evening, as we rested beside a pool of singing water, its surface reflecting impossible constellations, a shadow fell over our sanctuary. The temperature dropped, and the magical lights flickering around us dimmed to barely visible embers. "What do we have here?" a voice like crackling frost said. "Teaching another student, dear brother?" Arlo stiffened beside me. "Marlowe." A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with Arlo's high cheekbones and shifting eyes, but where his features held warmth, hers were sharp with cruel intention. Her hair moved like living shadows, and her gown seemed made of crystallized darkness. "Don't you remember what happened to your last student?" Marlowe's gaze fixed on me, and I felt my scars begin to burn. "How many more must you break before you learn?" "That was your doing, not mine," Arlo said, his voice hard as he stepped between us. Power radiated from him now, making the air thick with potential. "I merely showed her the truth, that magic always comes with a price." Marlowe smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. "Shall I show this one too? Shall I reveal what really happens to those who seek transformation without being worthy of it?" Before either of us could react, she flung out her hand. Dark energy crackled through the air toward me, promising to strip away not just the progress I'd made, but everything I was. Without thinking, I raised my own hands, remembering Arlo's lessons about possibility and limitation, about multiple truths existing simultaneously. The darkness hit what felt like an invisible wall before me, fragmenting into thousands of tiny butterflies that dissolved into starlight. Both Marlowe and Arlo stared at me in shock. "Impossible," Marlowe whispered. "You're just a human." But I understood then what Arlo had been trying to teach me all along. "No," I said, standing taller. "I'm someone who finally sees herself clearly. Someone who understands that scars can be strength, that broken things can be beautiful, that transformation doesn't mean erasing what was, but building something new from it." Power flowed through me, not dark like Marlowe's, but bright and warm like sunlight on water. The scars on my face tingled, and I watched in amazement as they transformed into streams of light that danced around me like cosmic ribbons. My blind eye, rather than being a weakness, had become a window to seeing magic itself. "You see, sister," Arlo said softly. "True magic isn't about power or price. It's about transformation. Not of the body, but of the heart. Not about becoming something different, but about revealing what was always there." Marlowe's form began to waver. "This isn't over," she hissed before dissolving into shadow. "Some truths are too harsh for love to overcome." In the silence that followed, Arlo turned to me with wonder in his color-changing eyes. "In all my years of teaching, I've never seen anyone channel pure light like that. You didn't just resist her darkness. You transformed it. I had a good teacher, I said, stepping closer to him. One who taught me that what we think of as flaws can become our greatest strength. Arlo reached out, tracing the now luminous lines on my face with gentle fingers. Your scars, he murmured. They've become channels for your magic. The very things you thought broke you have made you more powerful than you could imagine. Is that possible? With you, I'm beginning to believe anything is. His hand cupped my cheek, and I leaned into his touch. You've transformed more than just yourself, Cardigan. You've reminded me why I fell in love with magic in the first place, because it shows us the truth about ourselves, if we're brave enough to see it. Looking into his eyes, which had turned the deep blue of twilight, I saw my reflection again, not as I had been, or even as I was now, but as something entirely new. A woman who had walked through fire and emerged not undamaged, but stronger. Someone who had learned that real magic isn't about changing how you look, but about changing how you see. And what about love itself? I asked softly, feeling the magic pulse between us like a shared heartbeat. His answer was a kiss that tasted of starlight and possibility, of magic and truth, of endings and beginnings all wrapped into one moment of perfect understanding. The realm around us responded, erupting in a display of light and color that reflected the joy in our hearts. When we finally parted, the magical realm around us had transformed. The trees sparkled with thousands of tiny lights, and the air was filled with floating flowers that emitted soft, musical chimes as they drifted past. Even Marlowe's lingering shadows had been transformed into gentle twilight, proving that even darkness had its place in the balance of things. The realm responds to joy, Arlo explained, smiling. And truth. What truth is that? That sometimes the most powerful magic of all is simply allowing yourself to be loved exactly as you are. That beauty isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity. About embracing all of yourself, even the parts you once thought were broken. Hand in hand, we walked back toward the door to his shop, but I knew I wouldn't be using it to run away anymore. I had found something far more valuable than the perfect face I'd lost. I had found myself, and in doing so, found love that saw beneath the surface to the magic that had been there all along. The scars remained, but now they shimmered with an inner light that matched the magic I'd discovered within myself. My blind eye, once a source of shame, had become a window to seeing things others missed, the subtle magics that danced at the edges of the ordinary world. Each morning, when I looked in the mirror, I saw not the beauty queen I'd once been, but something far more precious. A woman who had learned to see her own worth. Arlo transformed his shop into a sanctuary for others like me, people seeking not just physical healing, but spiritual transformation. Together we helped them discover their own inner magic, teaching them that true beauty flows from accepting all parts of oneself, even the broken ones. Marlowe's shadows never fully disappeared, but they served as a reminder that even darkness has its purpose in teaching us to appreciate the light. As I stood in our magical realm, watching new seekers discover their own power, I realized that some accidents aren't accidents at all, but doorways to destiny. My scars had led me here, to this love, to this purpose, to this understanding that true beauty isn't about being flawless. It's about being fearlessly, authentically yourself. Ready for your next lesson? Arlo asked, his eyes twinkling with mischief and love as he pulled me close. The magical lights around us danced in response to our joy, creating patterns of light and shadow that told their own stories of transformation. I smiled, feeling the magic pulse beneath my skin like a second heartbeat, my scars glowing with inner starlight. With you. Always. And so our story continued, not as a tale of lost beauty regained, but as something far more magical, a journey of discovering that sometimes the most beautiful things in life are born from our deepest wounds, and that true love sees not with the eyes, but with the heart. My brush trembled against the canvas as twilight crept through my studio windows, bringing with it the scent of salt air and wild roses that climbed the weathered walls. My fingers, stained with ultramarine and silver, worked to capture the face that haunted my dreams, a face I knew better than my own, though I'd never seen it in waking life. Until today. The wooden floorboards of my centuries-old studio still held the day's warmth beneath my bare feet. Scattered around me, dozens of canvases caught the dying light, each one showing variations of the same mysterious features. Eyes that held the depth of ocean trenches, a jaw carved by time itself, and lips that seemed to hide ancient secrets. Some paintings were small enough to hold in one hand, others towered over me, but all bore the same ethereal quality that had earned me both fame and whispers of otherworldliness in the small coastal town of Haven Cove. The morning everything changed had dawned heavy with fog, thick enough to muffle the eternal song of waves against the shore. The air tasted of brine and possibilities as I made my way down the worn wooden steps to the beach, my usual array of supplies bundled in my arms. The damp sand squeaked beneath my feet, leaving perfect impressions that filled slowly with seawater, each one a tiny mirror reflecting the pearl-gray sky. Then I saw him. He stood at the water's edge where the sea met the shore, his dark coat rippling in the salt breeze like raven's wings. As if pulled by an invisible thread, he turned, and my world tilted on its axis. Every brushstroke, every dream, every countless hour I'd spent attempting to capture his likeness paled before the reality of him. "The paintings don't do you justice," were his first words to me, his voice carrying notes of distant shores and ancient songs. "Though you've captured my soul perfectly, Ailey." My name on his lips sent shivers across my skin like the first touch of winter frost. "How do you know my name?" The words emerged as barely more than a whisper, nearly lost in the sound of breaking waves. He moved toward me with fluid grace, and I noticed that his feet left no impressions in the wet sand. The fog swirled around him like a living thing, creating halos in the weak morning light. "I know everything about you," he said, close enough now that I could see the constellation of freckles across his cheeks, exactly as I had painted them countless times. "My name is Nader, and I've crossed oceans of time to find you." The truth spilled from him like water from a broken dam. He spoke of an ancient curse laid upon him by a goddess whose love he had spurned, not out of cruelty, but because his heart recognized even then that it belonged to another soul not yet born. The goddess, in her fury, had bound him to an eternal search. He had 30 days to find his true love and convince her to bind her soul to his, or he would fade from existence. "How many times have you searched?" I asked, my artist's eye noting how the rising sun transformed his dark hair into a crown of living flame. "This is my last chance," he admitted, his eyes holding shadows deeper than the ocean itself. "The curse allows 3 attempts across all of time. I've failed twice before, unwilling to bind another soul to this fate unless I was certain." His hand reached for mine but stopped just short of touching. "But I've never found you before. Never felt this certainty." Despite the impossible nature of his tale, something deep within my soul recognized its truth. I had always felt out of step with time itself, as if I had been born in the wrong century. My art had been my only anchor, and now I understood why. I had been painting him, waiting for him, my whole life. The days that followed unfolded like pages in a fairy tale, but filled with sensory delights that proved their reality. Nader taught me to read the secret language of stars, his fingers tracing constellations against my palm as we lay in the cool sand. He showed me how to listen to the wind's ancient stories, how to feel the earth's heartbeat beneath my feet, and how to see the magic that threaded through everyday life like gold through common rock. In my studio, he posed for me as I painted, our conversations flowing like the tide, sometimes deep and philosophical, sometimes playful as summer rain. He told me of the worlds he had seen, the lives he had lived, while I shared my dreams, my fears, and the loneliness that had always lingered beneath my skin like a shadow. We danced on the beach at midnight, our bare feet moving through the foam as bioluminescent waves created trails of living light around us. His touch left trails of warmth on my skin that lingered like sunlight, and when he kissed me for the first time, I tasted salt and starlight and centuries of longing. But time, as always, moved relentlessly forward. I watched the moon wane in the sky, counting down the days with increasing desperation. I noticed how Nader's form began to waver at the edges when he thought I wasn't looking, how he sometimes seemed to fade like a watercolor left in the rain. During storms, which grew more frequent as the deadline approached, I could almost see through him when lightning flashed. On the 29th night, as thunder shook the foundations of my studio, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my throat. What exactly does it mean to bind my soul to yours? What would I become? Lightning illuminated the room, highlighting Nader's increasingly transparent form. You would share my immortality, he explained, his voice carrying over the storm's fury. We would become guardians of love itself, bound to help others find their destined partners until the last star burns out. We would have eternity together, but never a true home, never a moment of complete rest. And if I refuse? The pain in his eyes cut deeper than any blade. Then I become less than a memory, a story untold, a song unsung. Even your paintings of me would fade to a blank canvas, as if I had never existed at all. That night, sleep eluded me. I walked the beach until dawn, the warm summer air heavy against my skin. I watched the stars wheel overhead, thinking of all the paintings I had created of his face before I knew him. Had my soul been reaching across time itself, recognizing its other half? Was love still love if fate had decreed it? But then again, wasn't all love a kind of fate? The final night arrived with a sky so clear it hurt to look at, each star burning with the intensity of truth. The full moon hung low and heavy over the water, turning the ocean to liquid silver. Nader waited for me at our usual spot, his form now so transparent that I could see the waves through his body. The sand was cool beneath my feet as I approached him, small crystals of quartz catching the moonlight like scattered diamonds. The air hummed with possibility and power, and I felt destiny holding its breath. "Before you speak," Nader said, his voice carrying the weight of uncertainty, "know that these past weeks have been worth every moment of searching. Loving you, Ailey, has been worth every second of the centuries I've walked this earth." I looked at him then, really looked, seeing every dream that had ever woken me in the night, every unexplained yearning that had led my brush across countless canvases. I thought of the life I had planned, quiet days in my studio, simple pleasures, the comfort of routine. Then I thought of the life he offered, adventure, magic, purpose, and a love that had moved through time to find me. When I made my choice, it felt like the final piece of a puzzle sliding into place. I stepped forward, pressing my palm against Nader's chest where his heart beat in time with the waves. "My soul has been yours since before time knew our names," I whispered. "I choose you. I choose us. I choose eternity." The moon pulsed overhead like a living heart as our lips met. Magic surged through my body like electricity through water, transforming my cells one by one until I glowed with the same inner light as Nader. I felt my consciousness expand, stretching to encompass centuries instead of decades, gathering wisdom and power like a river gathering tributaries. When we parted, the world had transformed through my new eyes. I could see the golden threads of fate that connected all living things. I felt the turn of the earth beneath my feet. I heard the music of the spheres that kept the planets dancing in their orbits. Nader's smile was radiant as he took my hand, both of us now shimmering with the same otherworldly light. Where our fingers intertwined, sparks of silver and gold danced in the air. "Ready to begin forever?" he asked, as the first light of dawn painted the horizon in shades of rose and pearl. I squeezed his hand, feeling the infinity of possibilities stretching out before us like an endless ocean. "Ready?" Together we walked toward the rising sun, leaving behind footprints that glowed with starlight before being claimed by the eternal tide. Above us, the moon lingered in the morning sky, a silent witness to a promise fulfilled, a curse transformed into a blessing, and a love story that would echo through the ages. In my studio, the paintings remained, now infused with a subtle magic that would call to other souls searching for their destiny across the vast ocean of time. And sometimes, on nights when the moon is full and the air tastes of magic, visitors to Haven Cove swear they can see two figures dancing on the waves, their forms wreathed in starlight, their love a beacon guiding other lost souls home. The villagers called them the Eternal Mountains, the towering peaks that pierced the clouds like ancient spears of ice. From my vantage point in my steam-powered snowmobile, their jagged silhouettes cut against the pewter sky like a crown of crystal thorns. I called them my next great challenge, though the word challenge felt inadequate as I watched storm clouds gather around their peaks, dark and heavy with winter's fury. As my vehicle crawled up the narrow mountain path, the engine's steady purr competed with the howling wind. The instrument panel cast a warm glow of brass and copper light across my gloved hands, the metal surfaces polished to mirror brightness from years of use. Steam hissed through carefully calibrated valves, smelling of oil and metal and adventure. Beyond the reinforced glass windows, snowflakes danced in hypnotic patterns, each unique crystal catching the light before joining its brethren in the deepening drifts. I hadn't come to these remote heights for the legends, though the innkeeper in the last town had filled my ears with tales of the mysterious snow maiden who protected these peaks. I still remembered how her eyes had widened when I mentioned my destination, how her weathered hands had clutched at her shawl as she spoke of a being who walked through blizzards as easily as summer breezes, her presence turning even the deadliest storms into gentle snowfall. "She's saved us all, one way or another," the innkeeper had said, her voice dropping to a whisper heavy with reverence. "But never look directly at her, my boy. Her beauty freezes the heart as surely as the deepest winter." I had smiled politely, more focused on checking my equipment than heeding supernatural warnings. I sought inspiration for my next invention. Perhaps something to help humanity survive in these harsh climates. My workshop back in the city was filled with half-finished projects, each one reaching toward the same goal, bridging the gap between human fragility and nature's raw power. Yet, as the storm intensified and my visibility dropped to mere feet, those dismissed warnings began to echo in my mind. The wind's howl took on an almost musical quality, like a chorus of voices just beyond comprehension. The snow itself seemed to move with purpose, swirling in patterns too precise to be natural. The first sign of real trouble came with a sound like thunder, except thunder had no place in a snowstorm. I looked up through the glass dome of my vehicle to see a wall of white racing down the mountainside. The avalanche moved faster than any natural phenomenon should, as if driven by an intelligent malice. In the heart of the cascading snow, I could have sworn I saw a figure of darker white, like a shadow cast by winter itself. I gunned the engine, but the snow was already upon me. The world turned white, then black. Metal screamed as my vehicle was tossed like a child's toy. Glass cracked in crystalline spider webs across my vision. The last thing I remembered was a flash of silver-white hair and eyes that glowed like the heart of a glacier, filled with an ancient sorrow that called to something deep within my soul. When I woke, I lay in a cave of ice that sparkled with its own inner light. Layers of color shifted through the frozen walls, deep blues, subtle purples, hints of green, creating an aurora in miniature. My body should have been frozen, but warmth emanated from the very walls around me, as if the ice itself had been transformed into something that defied natural law. And there she stood, the figure from my fading memories, real as the cold air in my lungs, real and more breathtaking than any legend could have prepared me for. Her dress seemed woven from snowflakes, each movement creating cascades of crystalline light that played across the cave walls. Her skin held the pale luminescence of moonlight on fresh snow, translucent enough that I could almost see the gentle pulse of power beneath. Her hair floated around her face as if suspended in water, each strand catching and refracting light like strands of living crystal. But it was her eyes that captured me, blue as the deepest ice, ancient and lonely as winter itself. Within their depths, I saw centuries of solitude, of watching mortal lives flash by like summer flowers, while she remained unchanging as the eternal snows. In that moment, all my scientific certainties crumbled like frost beneath the sun. "You shouldn't have come here, Ren Nakamura," she said, her voice like wind through icicles, musical and sharp and haunting. "These mountains are not safe for dreamers." Frost spiraled across the cave floor where she stepped, creating intricate patterns that reminded me of the blueprints scattered across my workshop desk. I pushed myself up, wincing at my bruised muscles. The air around me sparkled with tiny ice crystals that caught the ethereal light, creating halos of rainbow color. "You know my name? I know all who enter my domain." She moved closer, and the air around her shimmered with frost that smelled of winter roses and pine needles. Her presence brought a chill that somehow felt intimate rather than threatening, like the first breath of winter through an open window. "Just as I know you don't believe in me. The Snow Maiden of legend." I couldn't keep the wonder from my voice. All my scientific certainties melted in her presence, replaced by a deeper kind of knowing. My fingers itched to reach for her, to prove her solidity despite her ethereal appearance. "But you're real. Real enough to save you." Her expression softened slightly, and the temperature in the cave rose a fraction. A strand of her crystalline hair drifted close enough to brush my cheek, leaving a trail of tingling warmth and cold that lingered like a caress. "But you must leave when the storm passes. There are forces stirring in these mountains that even I cannot protect you from." "What forces? What are you protecting these people from?" I took a step toward her, drawn by an impulse I couldn't explain. The air between us grew thick with tension, like the moment before lightning strikes. She turned away, her form becoming translucent at the edges. The scent of winter roses intensified, mixing with an ancient smell of ice and stone. "Some questions are better left in the snow, inventor. For now, rest. Dawn comes soon." Her voice carried notes of longing that belied her warning words. "Dreams are dangerous things in these mountains. They have a way of coming true." Before I could respond, she melted into the air like snow in sunlight, leaving only a lingering trace of her presence. A slight warmth in the usually bitter cold, a faint shimmer in the air, and the haunting sense of something vital left unfinished. When I woke again, I lay in a normal cave, my vehicle somehow intact beside me. Sunlight filtered through a thin sheet of ice across the entrance, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the stone walls. Only a lingering scent of winter roses suggested I hadn't dreamed the whole encounter. I should have listened, Should have descended the mountain and returned to my comfortable workshop in the city, where science made sense and magic was safely confined to children's stories. But her eyes haunted me. Not their supernatural glow, but the profound solitude I'd glimpsed within them. No one should carry such loneliness, not even a spirit of winter. The village of Blythewood welcomed me with surprised warmth that contrasted sharply with the biting mountain air. Smoke rose from stone chimneys in lazy spirals, carrying the scent of pine wood and cooking spices. Children played in the snow-covered streets, their laughter bright as silver bells, while adults went about their work with the unhurried confidence of those long adapted to winter's ways. Few outsiders brave the high passes, the village elder told me over steaming cups of pine needle tea. The liquid glowed amber in carved crystal cups that caught and reflected the firelight. Her wrinkled hands cupped her drink as she studied me with eyes wise as the mountains themselves. The snow maiden guides worthy travelers to us, they say. Perhaps she sees something in you. I didn't tell her about my encounter in the cave, but my silence seemed answer enough. She nodded as if confirming something to herself and pressed a small crystal into my palm. It felt warm despite its icy appearance, pulsing gently like a tiny heartbeat. For protection, she said simply, and perhaps for connection. I set up my workshop in an abandoned barn at the village edge, close to the wild boundaries of the forest where civilization melted into winter's domain. The building's weathered wooden walls held the patina of ages, smooth and silver as frost. I spent the first days reinforcing the structure, adding my own inventions: copper pipes that carried steam heat, brass valves that regulated temperature, delicate instruments that measured the mountain's moods. The villagers watched my work with curious respect, bringing gifts of thick blankets woven with patterns of snowflakes and stars, jars of preserved mountain berries that burst with summer's sweetness, and stories. Always stories, each one adding another layer to my understanding of their mysterious protector. By day, I worked on my inventions, new heating systems that didn't fight against the cold but worked in harmony with it, more efficient snow-clearing devices that moved with winter's natural rhythms. The crystal the elder had given me sat on my workbench, its warm pulse synchronizing with my heartbeat as I worked. By night, I listened to the villagers' tales of their mysterious protector. They spoke of blizzards calmed by her presence, of dying crops saved by her blessed frost, of children rescued from winter's grasp. In their stories, she was both terrible and tender, as changeable as the mountain weather, yet as constant as the eternal snows. Yet none had seen her as I had. None knew she could speak, or that she bore such weight in her immortal heart. None mentioned the profound loneliness I'd glimpsed in her glacier blue eyes. The second time I saw her, I was tracking an unusual energy reading deep in the forest. My instruments had detected something that defied scientific explanation. A cold that burned, a power that made the compass needle spin in impossible directions. The crystal in my pocket pulsed stronger with each step into the wilderness. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. Snow fell in perfect silence, each flake drifting with deliberate grace. Ice coated the tree branches in layers that caught the fading light, creating a cathedral of frozen beauty. My breath fogged in the air, carrying the scent of pine and something sweeter, winter roses. She emerged from a curtain of falling snow, more substantial than before. Her presence brought that familiar mix of warmth and cold that I'd started to crave like a fever. Frost patterns spiraled out from her feet, creating trails of ice that matched the racing of my heart. I warned you to leave. Her voice carried notes of concern that belied her stern words. A snowflake landed on her cheek and didn't melt, adding to her crystalline beauty. I couldn't. The truth fell from my lips like fresh snow, pure and unstoppable. My fingers tightened around the crystal in my pocket, feeling its pulse quicken to match my own. Not without understanding. Understanding brings only pain, Ren. She spoke my name like a half-forgotten lullaby, each syllable carrying centuries of longing. The air between us grew thick with unspoken possibilities. Knowledge is not always a gift. Then let me share the burden of it. I stepped closer, watching the frost patterns shift and swirl around her feet in response to her emotions. You don't have to carry it alone. She studied me for a long moment, her eternal winter meeting my mortal warmth. The snow between us fell slower. Finally, she held out her hand. Frost immediately coated my glove where she touched it, but underneath, I felt a warmth that defied explanation. Come, she whispered, her voice carrying both invitation and warning. There is something you should see. She led me deeper into the forest, where the trees grew close and dark. Our footsteps left matching prints in the fresh snow, hers perfect crystals that sparkled with inner light, mine merely mortal impressions beside them. The crystal in my pocket grew warmer with each step, its pulse matching the rhythm of our movement. In a clearing stood an ancient shrine, its stone surfaces carved with scenes that caught and held the eye. Warriors battling a force of pure winter. A maiden stepping between humanity and protection. A sacrifice that echoed through centuries. At its center, a crystal much like mine pulsed with a cold blue light that seemed to reach for the snow maiden like a lover's touch. Long ago, she said, her voice taking on the cadence of ancient memory. These mountains faced a force that sought to plunge the world into endless winter. The people here had learned to live in harmony with the cold, but this entity, the Frost King, wanted only destruction. His power turned snow to steel, ice to obsidian, winter itself into a weapon. She touched the shrine's surface, and frost spread from her fingers, highlighting the carvings until they seemed to move. A young priestess discovered that the Frost King's power could be bound by an equal and opposite force, the warmth of human love and sacrifice. She offered herself, using her warmth and humanity as the price for his imprisonment. She became the first snow maiden, forever walking the boundary between human and spirit. You're her descendant? I asked, though in my heart I already knew the answer. I am her. She turned to me, and in her eyes I saw centuries of solitude. Immortality was part of the price. Each winter, I feel more of my humanity slip away as I maintain his bonds. Each summer, I remember less of what it meant to be human. Her hand still rested on the shrine, and I covered it with mine. The cold bit deep, but I welcomed it. There has to be another way. A balance between sacrifice and survival. Why would you risk yourself for me? Her voice held wonder and fear in equal measure. Snowflakes swirled between us, carrying the scent of winter roses and possibility. Because I see you, I said simply. Not the legend, not the spirit, but you. And no one should face eternity alone. Something shifted in her eyes then, a thaw in glaciers that had stood frozen for centuries. The crystal's pulse quickened, matching the rhythm of our shared breath. Your warmth calls to me, Wren. Like spring calls to winter, like dawn calls to dusk. But it also endangers you. Her free hand rose to cup my cheek, and frost bloomed across my skin like a caress. The colder I become, the more I hunger for mortal heat. Then take it. I turned my face into her touch, though every instinct warned against it. The cold burned, but beneath it lay a warmth I'd never known. Take what you need. It would destroy you. Fear crept into her voice. Not of me, but for me. I don't believe that. Another step closer. Frost crawled up my sleeves, but I didn't retreat. The crystal in my pocket blazed with warmth, counterpoint to her winter chill. You've spent centuries protecting others. Let someone protect you for once. The kiss, when it came, burned with cold fire. Frost spread across my skin, but beneath it, I felt her trembling with long-denied warmth. Her lips were soft as new snow, sweet as ice wine. For a moment, we stood suspended between mortal and immortal, winter and spring, duty and desire. The crystals, both hers and mine, pulsed in harmony, creating a symphony of light and power. Then the shrine's crystal flared with violent light, and she pushed me away. "He feels it," she gasped. "My weakness, my want." Ice spread from her feet, crackling across the clearing with predatory intent. "Run." But I couldn't leave her. Not now. Not ever. "Now, Ren!" she shouted, as a force stronger than life and deadlier than death engulfed her in its frosty fury. Frightened and freezing, I obeyed her command. I ran, far and fast, questioning my decision to leave her, ashamed that I wasn't brave enough to stay. Weeks passed in a chilling blur, a dance of advance and retreat. By day, I worked frantically in my workshop, studying the old stories, combining ancient wisdom with modern science. Steam and ice, copper and crystal, human ingenuity and eternal magic. Surely there was a way to bridge these worlds. By night, she came to me, drawn by my warmth, even as she feared it would destroy us both. We shared moments stolen from winter itself, her cool fingers tracing my inventions with curiosity, my hands teaching her to feel again through layers of protective cloth. Each touch burned with cold, but each burn struck deeper into her frozen heart, awakening feelings she'd thought lost to centuries of ice. "Tell me about the world beyond the mountains," she would ask, as we sat in my workshop, surrounded by the gentle hiss of steam and the ticking of delicate instruments. I described the wonders I'd seen, the machines I'd built, the dreams I still chased. In return, she shared fragments of her human life, memories preserved like flowers in ice, a mother's smile, a sister's laugh, the taste of fresh bread on winter mornings. But as our connection grew stronger, so did the Frost King's attacks. Storms raged with unnatural fury. Avalanches struck without warning. The very air grew sharp with malicious cold that sought to extinguish all warmth. "He feeds on winter's power," she explained one night, as we huddled in my workshop while the wind howled outside. Her hands traced patterns in the frost on my windows, patterns that matched the designs scattered across my workbench. And I am winter-made flesh. The more I feel, the more power I release into the world, the more his prison weakens. Then we'll find another source of power. I showed her my latest invention, a device that could channel thermal energy, converting heat to cold and back again. Brass pipes twisted like frozen vines, copper coils hummed with contained power, and at its heart sat the crystal the elder had given me, pulsing with possibility. If we can't break the cycle, we'll change it. She touched the device, leaving swirls of frost in her wake. "You still think science can solve what magic created?" "I think love can solve what loneliness created." I caught her hand, ignoring the cold that instantly numbed my fingers. The crystal flared brighter at our touch. "Your predecessor used sacrifice to bind him. But what if the answer isn't in losing humanity, but in sharing it?" Understanding dawned in her winter-bright eyes. A balance. Yes. Not warm defeating cold, or cold consuming warm, but both existing together, strengthening one another. The storm outside intensified, as if the Frost King himself raged against our discovery. The windows rattled, ice crept across the walls. But in that moment, holding her gradually warming hand, I felt nothing but hope. It took us 3 more days to perfect the device. 3 days of endless storms. 3 days of the village huddling in fear while their protector and a foreign inventor gambled with forces beyond mortal understanding. The villagers brought us supplies without question, their trust in her extending to include me. the outsider who dared to love winter itself. When the final night came, we stood before the ancient shrine as the worst blizzard in living memory raged around us. The crystal prison pulsed with blinding light, ice spreading from its base like reaching fingers. Wind-driven snow carved patterns in the air, beautiful and deadly as the Frost King's power grew. "Are you sure about this?" Her voice barely carried over the wind. She looked more human than I'd ever seen her, fear and hope warring in her expression. "Once we begin, there's no turning back. If we fail, we won't." I activated the device, watching the indicators spin to life. Steam met ice in carefully controlled spirals. The crystal in my pocket pulsed in harmony with the shrine's larger one. "Do you trust me?" "More than I've trusted anyone in centuries." She took my hands, and for the first time, her touch didn't burn with cold. The ritual began simply, her power flowing into the crystal, my device channeling it, transforming it from destructive cold to balanced energy. But as the Frost King felt his prison changing, he fought back with all his ancient fury. Ice spears erupted from the ground. The wind turned solid, sharp enough to cut. The very air crystallized, threatening to freeze us where we stood. Through it all, she stood firm, one hand on the crystal, the other gripped in mine. Our hearts beat in time with the pulsing lights, creating a rhythm older than winter itself. "Hold on," I shouted, as the device reached critical levels. Steam and ice met in impossible patterns, neither winning, both transforming. Just a little longer. The cold became unbearable, then transcendent. I felt her power course through me, no longer burning but singing in my blood. My warmth flowed into her, not weakening but growing stronger in the sharing. Science and magic, mortal and spirit, love and duty, all merging into something entirely new. The crystal's light changed from cold blue to warm gold. The Frost King screamed in rage, then wonder, as his prison transformed. No longer a cage of sacrifice, but a lens of balance, focusing and dispersing winter's power in eternal harmony. The storm above calmed, snow falling now in gentle swirls that caught the dawn's first light. When it was over, she stood solid and real in my arms, her skin still cool but no longer deathly cold. "How do you feel?" I asked, brushing snowflakes from her hair, snowflakes that no longer froze instantly at her touch. "Human," she whispered, "but also more, both mortal and spirit, winter and spring." She touched my face, and her fingers left only the faintest trace of frost. "What about you?" I smiled, watching my breath mist in the air. A little cooler, but in a good way. The village celebrated for 3 days when they learned their protector had found both love and balance. The storms still come. Winter will always have its fury. But now they're natural, clean, part of the eternal cycle rather than an ancient being's rage. She has a mortal name now, though I keep it close to my heart. To the village, she's still their snow maiden, blessing their crops with gentle frost and calming winter's worst moods. To me, she's simply my love, cool fingers intertwined with mine as we walk the boundary between worlds. Our home sits at the edge of the village, half workshop and half shrine. The devices we create together combine science and magic in ways neither of us could have imagined alone. Steam and ice dance in eternal balance, just as we do. And on the coldest nights, when we watch the aurora dance above the peaks, I remember that some loves are worth braving the storm for. They say opposites attract, but maybe they do more than that. Maybe they complete one another, creating something entirely new in the space between extremes. In the end, that's where we found our answer. Not in conquering the cold or surrendering to it, but in learning to dance with winter itself. And in our dance, we found forever. remember the cold first. Not the ordinary chill that settles into your bones during the long winter moons, but the deep, ancient cold that speaks of endings and beginnings all at once. The kind of cold that transforms the world into crystal and silence. My name is Kayla, daughter of the northern tundra, and this is how I learned to walk between worlds. The night of the moon ritual arrived with a sky so clear it seemed polished by invisible hands. Stars scattered across the darkness like crushed diamonds, and the aurora rippled in veils of green and blue above our village. Elders said the lights were the roads spirits traveled, but I had never believed in such things, until that night. I stood among my people, 20 summers to my name, marked for the ritual by birth. I had arrived during the eclipse when the moon disappeared and returned transformed. A portent, the elders whispered. A sign that I would one day serve as a bridge between our world and the next. The north wind carries your ancestors' blessing, my grandmother murmured, painting my face with cold blue paste that smelled of crushed juniper and something older, something that did not belong to this world. The symbols she traced, spirals and stars and crescent moons, tingled against my skin. My fellow hunters watched from a respectful distance, their faces flickering in torchlight. Among them stood Terran, his eyes reflecting the flames, his mouth set in a hard line. Once we had been promised to one another, but ambition had turned his heart cold. Now he served as second to our leader, Herrick, a man whose hunger for power had slowly transformed our traditions into something unrecognizable. "It is time," Herrick announced, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. The ceremonial furs draped across his shoulders gleamed silver in the moonlight. Kayla will complete the sacred journey and return to us with the blessing of the moon wolf. Or not return at all, I thought. The words unspoken but understood by all. No one had completed the ritual in 3 generations. Most who attempted it were never seen again, their bodies lost to the vast white emptiness of the tundra. Herrick approached, a bone knife in his hand carved with symbols so ancient even our oldest elders couldn't decipher them. "Bare your palm," he commanded. I extended my hand, palm up. The knife bit deep, and I refused to flinch as my blood welled dark against my skin. "Blood calls to blood," Herrick intoned. "Spirit calls to spirit. Walk the path of twilight and return transformed. Or not at all." The crowd's silence pressed in around me. My grandmother touched my shoulder one last time, her eyes wet with unspoken farewells. Then I turned toward the waiting wilderness, toward the sacred mountain that loomed in the distance, its peak piercing the rippling curtain of the aurora. I began walking, following the trail of blood I left in the snow. Behind me, the village grew smaller, the torches diminishing to pinpricks of light before vanishing altogether. Ahead lay only vastness, the stretch of tundra, the distant mountain, and the infinite sky above. The moon rose higher, casting the landscape in silver light. My breath clouded before me, and the cold seeped through my furs. The ritual required that I carry no weapons, no food, only my own strength and the ancestral knowledge passed down through generations. The wind picked up, carrying whispers that might have been voices or merely the sound of ice crystals shifting in the air. I walked for hours, the mountain growing no closer, my blood continuing to drip onto the pristine snow. The cut should have closed by now, but ritual magic kept it open, a beacon for whatever I sought, or whatever sought me. The first howl shattered the silence when the moon reached its zenith. I froze, scanning the horizon. The sound came again, closer this time. A mournful cry that seemed to resonate with something deep within my chest. My heart quickened. The moon wolf was no mere legend. It was a creature our people both feared and venerated. To encounter it was to stand at the threshold between life and death. A shadow detached itself from the darkness ahead. moving with liquid grace across the snow. Silver fur gleamed in the moonlight, and yellow eyes fixed on mine with an intelligence that stole my breath. The wolf was massive, its shoulders reaching my chest, its presence filling the space between us with something ancient and knowing. It circled me once, twice, its nostrils flaring as it caught my scent. My blood on the snow drew a path straight to where I stood. I remained still, remembering my grandmother's teachings. Show no fear. The wolf does not respect fear. It respects strength, stillness, and truth. The wolf completed its third circle and stopped before me. Only then did I notice the dark stain on its right flank, the matted fur, and the slight favoring of its hind leg. It was injured. At that moment, something shifted between us. No longer predator and prey, but two wounded creatures beneath the watching moon. "You're hurt," I whispered, my voice strange in the silence. The wolf's ears twitched, and it took a step closer. I slowly knelt in the snow, extending my bleeding hand, palm up. An offering. The wolf hesitated, then lowered its great head to my palm. Its rough tongue swept across my wound, and a jolt of something like lightning raced up my arm. The cut sealed instantly, leaving only a silver crescent scar. My vision swam, the world tilting strangely around me. The stars overhead seemed suddenly closer, almost close enough to touch, and the aurora pulsed in time with my heartbeat. The wolf's yellow eyes captured mine, and I saw a mountain cave glowing with blue light, a pool of water that reflected not the ceiling above, but a sky filled with stars I'd never seen. A woman with my face but dressed in garments from another age, her hand resting on the head of a silver wolf. I gasped as the vision faded, swaying on my knees in the snow. The wolf watched me, patient, expectant. "What was that?" I whispered. "Did you show me that?" The wolf turned, taking several steps away from me before looking back. The message was clear. Follow. Rising to my feet, I took a step forward, then another, and another, until I walked alongside the great beast, our pace matched as if we had traveled together for a lifetime. "I don't understand," I said softly. "This isn't how the ritual is supposed to proceed. The elders said there would be a test, a challenge." The wolf huffed, its breath clouding in the cold air. Its yellow eyes seemed almost amused. "Unless this is the test," I realized. To trust, to follow. The snow crunched beneath our feet as we walked, and gradually I became aware of subtle changes in our surroundings. The stars overhead shifted position faster than they should have. The mountain we approached seemed both closer and somehow different than the one I had initially set out toward. The very air felt charged with something I couldn't name. "Where are you taking me?" I asked, though I expected no answer. To my shock, a voice whispered through my mind, "To where you need to be." I stumbled, nearly falling. The wolf paused, watching me with those intelligent eyes. "You speak?" I managed. "Not as humans do, but you can hear me now because the bond has begun." The bond? Between guardian and keeper, between the moon and earth, between what is and what might be. Before I could question further, a new sound reached us, voices calling my name. Harsh, angry voices. The wolf tensed, hackles rising. Danger comes. I turned to see torches in the distance, moving rapidly across the tundra. A hunting party. Herrick's men. "They're following us," I said. "But why?" "This isn't part of the ritual." The wolf growled, the sound reverberating through the frozen ground beneath our feet. "They do not honor the old ways. They seek power, not harmony. They wish to capture a moon guardian, to bend its magic to their will." Understanding dawned, cold and clear as the night around us. Herrick had never intended for me to complete the ritual. I was merely bait, chosen because of my birth under the eclipse. My blood was the lure. "You're injured because of them," I said. "They wounded you." "Yes." "An arrow tipped with shadow root. It weakens our kind." Anger flared within me, hot and fierce. "Then we need to move faster." I broke into a run, the wolf matching my pace despite its injury. We flew across the snow, two shadows beneath the watching moon. Behind us, the voices grew more distant, but I knew they would not give up easily. My breath burned in my lungs as we ran, and the landscape around us blurred and shifted. The snow beneath our feet sparkled with an inner light I had never seen before, and the swaying auroras descended lower, their colors intensifying until they painted the tundra in swaths of emerald, sapphire, and violet. "We cross between worlds now," the wolf's voice explained in my mind. "Few humans can walk this path. The veil thins for those with the sight." The sight. My grandmother had used that word, watching me carefully as I described the strange things I sometimes glimpsed from the corner of my eye. Shadows moving against the wind, lights dancing where no fire burned, figures walking across the snow leaving no footprints behind. "What is happening to me?" I gasped as the world continued to transform around us. "You remember what you have always been," came the cryptic reply. We crested a rise, and I stopped in wonder. Below us stretched a valley unlike any I had seen before. Ancient trees with trunks wider than 5 men standing shoulder to shoulder rose into the night sky, their branches heavy with ice that caught the moonlight and refracted it into thousands of rainbow prisms. Between the trees moved shapes, some animal, some humanoid, some defying description altogether. "What is this place?" I whispered. "A crossing point, a sanctuary, home to those who walk between." The wolf led me down into the valley, where the air grew noticeably warmer. The trees seemed to bend slightly as we passed, branches dipping in acknowledgement. The shadows between the massive trunks shifted and whispered, and I caught glimpses of eyes watching us, some curious, some wary, all knowing. We followed a path that glowed faintly blue, winding between the trees toward the center of the valley. As we walked, I became aware of a gentle humming sound, a melody so subtle it vibrated through the earth itself. "I hear music," I said. "The song of the earth. All places sing, but few humans hear. You hear because you are awakening." We reached a clearing where a perfect circle of stones stood, each taller than me, and carved with symbols similar to those on Herrick's ritual knife. At the center of the circle lay a pool of water so still it mirrored the sky above with perfect clarity. The wolf stopped at the edge of the pool. "This is the moon's mirror. Look into it and tell me what you see." I approached cautiously, kneeling at the water's edge. At first I saw only my reflection, my face still painted with the ritual symbols, my eyes wide with wonder and fear. Then the water rippled, though no wind disturbed its surface. My reflection changed. I was still myself, but different. Dressed in silver-white furs I had never worn, my hair longer and threaded with small crystals that caught the light. Around my neck hung a pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Beside me stood the silver wolf, whole and uninjured, its yellow eyes gleaming with power. Then the vision shifted again. I saw Herrick and his men entering the sacred valley, weapons drawn, faces twisted with greed. I saw the ancient trees withering at their approach, the magical creatures fleeing in terror. I saw the moon's mirror polluted, its waters turning black. "They're coming here," I said, pulling back from the water with a gasp. "They'll destroy this place." "They seek what they cannot understand." The wolf's mental voice was grim. "This has happened before, in cycles as old as the moon herself. Always there are those who wish to possess rather than protect. What can we do? Complete the ritual. Become what you were born to be. The wolf moved to stand on the opposite side of the pool, its injured form reflected in the water between us. The moon's whisper requires a sacrifice freely given, an exchange of life force. Only through mutual surrender can the bond be forged. What kind of sacrifice? I asked, though somehow I already knew. I offer my immortal essence. You offer your mortal limitations. Together we become something new, a dreamkeeper, guardian of the threshold between worlds. Fear clutched at my heart. Will it hurt? The wolf's eyes softened. There is always pain in transformation, but there is beauty too. From the distance came shouts, Herrick and his men drawing closer. We had little time. What must I do? Place your hands in the water. Open your mind to mine. Remember who you have always been. I plunged my hands into the pool. The water was neither warm nor cold, but vibrated with energy that raced up my arms and spread throughout my body. Across from me, the wolf placed one paw into the water, and our eyes locked. The world dissolved. I fell through memories not my own, the wolf running beneath countless moons, guarding the sacred places, watching civilizations rise and fall like waves upon a shore. I saw myself through its eyes, not just as I was now, but as I had been before. A different body, a different time, but the same soul. Again and again, lifetime after lifetime, we had found one another. Sometimes I completed the transformation. Sometimes I failed. Sometimes we parted in sorrow, sometimes in triumph. The wolf fell through my memories too, my childhood in the village, my grandmother's teachings, and my growing awareness that I did not quite belong. My fear and my courage, my doubts and my certainties. We merged and separated, like dancers circling one another in perfect rhythm. Remember, the wolf urged. Remember the promise. And suddenly, I did remember. Standing in this very spot centuries ago, my hand on the head of a silver wolf, speaking words in a language I no longer knew but somehow understood. As long as the moon walks her path across the sky, I will guard the threshold. I will guide the lost. I will remember when others forget. Power surged between us, and the water of the pool glowed with an intense silver-blue light that shot upward in a column, connecting earth to sky. The aurora above responded, descending in curtains of color that wrapped around the pillar of light. Pain lanced through me. Not the pain of injury, but of expansion, as if my very being grew too large for my physical form. I screamed, but the sound transformed into something else. A howl that echoed the wolf's own cry. The wolf's form dissolved into particles of light that swirled across the pool toward me. At the same time, something of my own essence flowed toward the wolf. We exchanged parts of ourselves, becoming neither fully human nor fully wolf, but something in between. Something more. Yes, the wolf's voice encouraged. Accept what you are. The transformation continued, building in intensity until I could no longer distinguish between myself and the wolf, between the water and the sky, between past and present. Everything was light and sound and sensation. Then, abruptly, it stopped. I found myself standing in the center of the pool, which was now merely inches deep. My body felt simultaneously lighter and more substantial than before. Power hummed beneath my skin. I looked down at my hands and saw that the blue symbols painted there for the ritual now glowed from within, no longer mere pigment, but part of my very being. Around my neck hung the crescent moon pendant I had seen in the vision. My clothes had transformed into silver-white furs, and beside me stood the wolf, its injury healed, its yellow eyes now flecked with the same blue that marked my skin. "It is done," the wolf said, its mental voice now clearer than before. "We are bonded." "What happens now?" I asked, my voice sounding strange to my ears, layered somehow, as if multiple versions of myself spoke at once. "Now we protect what must be protected." We turned as one to face the edge of the clearing, where Herrick and 5 of his men emerged from between the trees. They stopped short at the sight of us, their expressions shifting from triumph to uncertainty. "Kayla," Herrick called, his hand tight around his bone knife. "Step away from the beast." I felt a smile curve my lips. "The beast and I are one now, Herrick. The ritual is complete." Anger flashed across his face. "That's impossible. No one completes the ritual anymore. That's not how this works." "Because you perverted the ancient ways," I said, understanding flowing through me with each passing moment. "You used the ritual as a way to lure the Moon Guardians, to wound them, to attempt to capture their power for yourself." Taryn pushed forward, weapon in hand. "Herrick has led our people to prosperity. The old ways made us weak. Magic is a tool to be used, not worshipped." "Magic is neither tool nor God," I replied, the words coming from somewhere beyond myself. "It is the breath between worlds, the bridge between what is seen and unseen. It cannot be possessed." Herrick snarled, "Enough of this nonsense. Take her. Kill the wolf." The men moved forward, weapons raised. The wolf beside me growled, hackles rising. But I felt no fear, only a deep, resonant certainty. I raised my hands, and the symbols on my skin flared bright blue. "Stop." The single word carried power unlike anything I had ever wielded. The men froze in place, unable to move forward. "I am Kayla, Dreamkeeper, and Guardian of the Threshold," I said, the title rising from ancient memory. "You have violated sacred ground, Herrick. You have shed innocent blood. You have forgotten what our people once knew, that we are stewards, not masters." "Kill them!" Herrick screamed, fighting against the invisible force that held him in place. One of the men managed to knock an arrow, drawing his bow with trembling hands. The wolf and I moved in perfect unison. As the arrow flew, I caught it midair, the shaft turning to frost beneath my fingers. The wolf leaped, not toward the men, but in a circle around them, trailing silver light that formed a containing ring. "You cannot win this battle," I told them. "Not here, between the worlds." "Then we'll bring more men," Herrick hissed. "We'll burn your precious trees. We'll drain your magical pool. We are many, and you are one." "Show him," the wolf suggested. I nodded and swept my arm toward the pool behind us. The water rippled, and then figures emerged. Other dreamkeepers from across time and space, some human-like, others more wolf than person, all marked with the same glowing symbols I now bore. They formed a silent semicircle behind us, dozens strong. "We are many," I corrected. "And we have guarded the sacred places since time began." Fear finally crept into Herrick's eyes. "What do you want?" "Leave this place. Return to our people. Tell them the truth of what the ritual was meant to be. Tell them a Dreamkeeper walks again." "And if I refuse?" I smiled, feeling the wolf's fierce joy mirror my own. "Then you will wander the space between worlds until you learn humility. It might take several lifetimes." I knew he sensed its truth. If I willed it, I could strand them in this twilight realm, where time moved differently, where human concerns diminished against the vast tapestry of existence. Herrick's shoulders sagged in defeat. "Release us," he muttered. With a gesture, I dissolved the containing circle. The spectral dreamkeepers behind us faded back into the pool. "Go," I said. "Remember what you've seen here today." The men backed away slowly, then turned and fled through the trees. Only Taryn remained, his expression conflicted. Are you coming back? He asked softly. I exchanged a glance with the wolf. Yes, but not as who I was. What will you do? Restore what was lost. Guide those who are ready to listen. Walk between worlds. He nodded slowly, studying my transformed appearance. I never understood you. Perhaps I wasn't meant to. Perhaps, I agreed, but understanding can come with time. After a long moment, he turned to follow the others. I watched him go, feeling a chapter of my life closing. Your first test as Dreamkeeper, the wolf observed. You chose mercy. Was that the right choice? There is no right or wrong in such matters, only consequences. We shall see what grows from the seeds you've planted today. We turned back to the moon's mirror, which had returned to its still reflective state. In its depths, I could now see pathways, shimmering routes connecting this sacred place to others around the world. So many, I breathed, all in need of guardians, all in need of those who remember the old promises. Where do we start? The wolf's eyes gleamed with ancient wisdom. We begin with rest. Transformation requires recovery. For the first time, I noticed the bone-deep exhaustion that pulled at me. Where? This way. The wolf led me deeper into the circle of standing stones, to a place where the earth itself had formed a natural hollow beneath the roots of one of the massive trees. Soft moss carpeted the ground, and the air was warm, despite the winter night outside the valley. I settled into the hollow, and the wolf curled beside me, its warm body a comfort against the overwhelming newness of my existence. Above us, through gaps in the ancient roots, I could see stars and the dancing aurora. Will I ever see my village again? I asked drowsily, feeling sleep tug at the edges of my consciousness. Yes, but you belong to all places now, and all times. Sleep, Dreamkeeper. Tomorrow we begin the real journey. As my eyes closed, I felt the boundaries of my being grow soft and expansive. My dreams merged with reality, and I found myself walking silver pathways between stars, the wolf always at my side. I saw other dreamers walking their own paths, and realized I could now reach them, guide them, and protect them from the nightmares that lurked in shadowed corners. This was my purpose, to be the bridge, the guardian, the keeper of sacred spaces where imagination and reality intersected. This was what I had always been meant to become. My wolf, my other self, padded silently beside me through the dreamscape. Between one step and the next, we crossed boundaries invisible to ordinary eyes, our footsteps leaving behind a trail of gentle light for lost souls to follow. Remember, the wolf whispered in my mind. Remember the promise. As long as the moon walks her path across the sky, I recited, the ancient words flowing naturally now. I will guard the threshold. I will guide the lost. I will remember when others forget. The words echoed across the dreamscape, rippling outward like stones dropped in still water. Somewhere in the waking world, a sleeper smiled in their dreams, feeling suddenly safe. And so began my life as Kayla, the Dreamkeeper, with a silver wolf as my guide and companion, walking the twilight paths between what is and what might be. Under the watchful gaze of the moon, we became guardians of the forgotten magic that still hums beneath the snow, waiting for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Every night, as you drift toward sleep, we walk beside you through the veil of dreams. Listen for our footfalls in the quiet moments between thoughts. Look for our silhouettes against the backdrop of your imagination. We are there, keeping watch, ensuring safe passage between worlds. All you need to do is remember. Salt crystals crunched beneath my bare feet, as I traced familiar paths along the shoreline. The setting sun painted the clouds in shades of coral and gold, their colors reflecting in tide pools like scattered jewels. I inhaled deeply, letting the briny air fill my lungs, a mixture of seaweed, salt spray, and that indefinable essence that made every beach unique. My collection bag already held a dozen shells, each one singing its distinct melody. A spiraling periwinkle hummed like distant wind chimes. A fan-shaped scallop whispered a lullaby. But I kept searching, drawn by an inexplicable feeling that something waited for me in the gathering dusk. The massive conch shell lay half buried in wet sand, its surface gleaming with impossible colors. Swirls of midnight blue merged with threads of gold that moved in the fading light. My fingers trembled as I lifted it. The shell was warm despite the cool evening air, its weight settling in my palms like it belonged there. When I held it to my ear, the usual soft hum of shells transformed into something else entirely. A deep, rich voice poured over thunder and spoke my name. Irene. The sound resonated through my chest, making my heart stutter. My knees weakened, and I sank into the damp sand. The incoming tide lapped at my feet, surprisingly warm for early summer. You can hear me. The voice held centuries of longing. After so long, someone finally hears. Who? My throat felt dry. I swallowed hard. Who are you? I am Orin, guardian of the ocean's magic. His voice carried the weight of waves and the lightness of sea foam. And you, Irene, can hear the true songs. The shell pulsed with gentle warmth against my skin. How do you know my name? I know the bloodline of all shell singers. Your grandmother was one. Perhaps the last, until you. Memory washed over me like a wave, Gran's weathered hands guiding mine to hold a tiny spiral shell, her smile when I gasped at hearing my first song, the scent of her gardenia perfume mixed with salt air. Her final words before she passed were, "Trust what the ocean tells you, little pearl." Gran never told me what it meant, I whispered. Why I could hear them when no one else could. She protected you until you were ready. Orin's voice softened. The gift of shell singing brings both wonder and responsibility. Those who fear magic would seek to destroy it, as they sought to destroy me. A gust of wind carried the sharp scent of approaching rain. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, though stars still glittered overhead. The waves grew more insistent, reaching for the shell in my hands. What happened to you? Centuries ago, I guarded the balance between land and sea. But humans grew fearful of ocean magic. They worked a binding spell, trapping me in this shell. His voice darkened like storm-tossed water. But they didn't understand. My imprisonment left the seas unprotected. Now something stirs in the deep. Something that should have remained sleeping. Thunder rolled in the distance. The water around my feet receded unnaturally, pulling back as if recoiling from an unseen threat. What's awakening? An ancient one, a creature of chaos bound by the same spell that holds me. The magic weakens, Irene. When it breaks, and it will break soon, both I and the creature will be freed. Without a guardian's strength to contain it, the beast will return the oceans to their primordial state. Nothing will survive its hunger. I clutched the shell tighter, its warmth spreading up my arms. Why tell me this? Because you can hear me. Because your blood carries the old magic. You're the only one who can break the spell safely. Release me without unleashing the chaos. His voice caressed my mind like gentle waves. I've waited centuries for someone like you. The tide rushed back in, swirling around my legs with unusual force. The water felt different, heavier, more purposeful. Something vast moved beneath the surface, too far out to see clearly. I need to understand everything, I said. Tell me about the binding, about Gran, about what's out there. Tell me how to help." As the storm approached, Oren's story poured forth. He spoke of an age when magic flowed freely between the worlds, when guardians kept the balance between primal forces. He told me of my grandmother's role as keeper of ancient knowledge, and how she had known this day would come. "Your grandmother found me when she was just a girl," he said, his voice swelling with memory. "She kept me safe until she could pass the knowledge to you. She saw something in you from the moment you were born, a connection to the sea that ran deeper than blood. I remembered Gran's cottage by the shore, how she'd taught me to listen to shells, while other grandmothers taught their grandchildren to bake cookies. How she'd walked with me at the ocean's edge every night, whispering stories of merfolk and guardians and magic hidden beneath the waves. She never spoke about my parents," I said softly, "only that they were gone." A pause hung between us, heavy with unspoken truths. "Your mother was her daughter," Oren finally replied. "Your father came from the sea." My heart lurched. "What are you saying?" "Not all guardians take human form, Irene. Your father was of my kind, a protector of the depths who fell in love with a human woman. Their union was rare, precious, and forbidden." The shell warmed against my palm, almost too hot to hold. "Is that why I can hear you? Because I'm half human, half guardian," he finished. "A bridge between worlds. The only one who might heal the divide." The wind whipped my hair around my face as I struggled to process this revelation. The storm clouds drew closer, lightning flashing within their dark hearts. "The binding spell," I managed, forcing my thoughts back to the immediate threat. "How do we break it for you but keep the other contained?" The spell was woven with sacrifice and sealed with blood. Breaking it requires more than just power. It needs understanding, acceptance, and a connection between souls. "What kind of connection?" I asked, though something in my heart already knew. "The deepest kind." His voice held a warmth that seemed to chase away the growing chill. "One that forms when two spirits recognize one another across time itself." I rose from the sand, clutching the shell to my chest. "I should go before the storm hits. I'll come back tomorrow. Irene." My name in his voice sent shivers down my spine. "Be careful. The ocean grows restless. Thalasso's senses change coming, and it will fight to break free." That night, I dreamed of diving through endless blue depths. In my dreams, a man swam beside me, tall and powerful, with skin like polished pearl and hair the deep blue-green of ocean depths. His eyes, when they met mine, held the same warmth I'd heard in Oren's voice. He took my hand, our fingers intertwining as we spiraled through coral gardens that glowed with their own light. Fish with scales like jewels darted around us. In this realm between waking and sleeping, words flowed without speaking. "I've waited so long for you." His thoughts brushed against mine, intimate as a caress. I felt his loneliness, centuries of isolation, and the growing hope that had ignited when I first heard his voice. "How did you know it would be me?" I asked without words. "The ocean remembers what the mind forgets. We've met before, Irene. In another time, another life." He pulled me closer, our bodies floating weightlessly in the current. His hand cupped my cheek, his thumb tracing my lower lip. The intensity of his gaze stole my breath. When two souls are meant to find each other, even time bends to make it possible. I woke with the taste of salt on my lips and tears on my cheeks, my body humming with a longing I couldn't name. The shell on my nightstand glowed softly in the pre-dawn darkness, pulsing like a heartbeat. Over the next 7 days, I returned to the beach at every possible moment. Oren taught me the old words of power, the songs that could unravel spells. But more than that, we talked. He told me of swimming through coral gardens that glowed with their own light, of conversations with whale pods that spanned decades, of watching civilizations rise and fall from his ocean home. I shared my own stories, the loneliness of being different, the joy of finding shells that sang just for me, the dreams of something more that had always pulled me toward the sea. With each conversation, the connection between us deepened. I began to sense his emotions, to feel echoes of his presence even away from the shell. Every night, I dreamed of him. In these dreams, we explored underwater kingdoms and danced in moonlit waters. His touch grew bolder, his kisses more urgent. I woke each morning with my body aching for completion, for a lover who existed only in my dreams, and a shell clutched in my hand. On the 5th day, I arrived at our usual meeting spot to find the sea churning beneath a clear sky, waves crashing against the shore with unusual force. "Oren," I called, clutching the shell close. "What's happening?" His voice came strained, distant. "Thalassos fights against its bonds. The binding weakens faster than I feared." Lightning crackled across the water's surface, though no storm clouds gathered. In that flash, I glimpsed something massive moving beyond the breakers, a darkness deeper than the water itself. "Tell me more about it," I said, sinking onto the sand. "What exactly are we facing?" "Thalassos is as old as the oceans themselves, a being of pure chaos that remembers when the seas were acid and fire when nothing lived but itself." His voice held ancient grief. "It desires only to return to that state of primal dominance. And you? What do you desire?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. A pause hung between us, filled with the crash of waves and the cry of gulls. "Freedom," he finally answered. "And you." Heat flooded my cheeks. "You don't even know me." "I know your soul, Irene. I've known it across lifetimes." His voice caressed my mind. "I know how your heart beats faster when I say your name. I know the dreams you've been having." "You send those dreams?" "I share them. What we experience in that space between worlds is real, a meeting of spirits while your body sleeps." I traced the spiral pattern of the shell with my fingertip, remembering the feel of his hands on my skin, his lips against mine. "So, you know how I feel. Tell me anyway." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I need to hear the words." "I think I've loved you since before I knew you existed," I admitted. "I just didn't understand the emptiness until you filled it." The shell warmed against my palm, pulsing with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. "My brave shell singer," he murmured. "I think I've loved you since the first moment you heard my voice." As our bond grew stronger, so did the signs of approaching chaos. The waves grew erratic, following patterns that didn't match the moon's pull. Seabirds fled the coast in massive flocks. Fish washed ashore with strange marks on their scales, their eyes clouded with terror. On the 7th day, a dead whale appeared on the beach. Its massive body bore wounds like nothing I'd ever seen. Not from propellers or sharks, but jagged rips that seemed made by teeth larger than anything known to science. The authorities cordoned off the area, baffled experts shaking their heads as they took samples. I slipped past the barriers at twilight, drawn to the creature. Up close, the wounds emanated a faint, sickly glow. When I touched the edge of one laceration, visions flashed through my mind. Darkness, ancient hunger, a malevolence that predated consciousness itself. Thalassos killed it, Oren confirmed when I returned to our spot down the beach, the shell glowing faintly in my hands. "It's testing its strength. The binding won't hold much longer." "The ritual to break your part of the spell," I said urgently. We need to do it now. It must be performed at midnight during the new moon, when the veil between worlds grows thinnest. His voice tightened with concern. That's tomorrow night, Irene. But I fear Thalassos won't wait that long. I looked out at the unnaturally still water. The usual rhythm of the waves had ceased, leaving the ocean's surface flat and glassy despite the evening breeze. What do we do until then? Tonight, we complete the connection between us. Only the strongest bond will give us the power we need. In my dreams? Yes, but deeper than before. I need to teach you the final words of power, knowledge that can only be shared through the most intimate communion. That night, I prepared carefully. I bathed in seawater collected at sunset, scented with the herbs Gran had taught me to use. Lavender for protection, rose for love, rosemary for memory. I dressed in a simple white nightgown, leaving my feet bare to maintain contact with the earth. The shell lay on a cushion of blue silk beside my bed. When midnight struck, I placed the shell over my heart and closed my eyes, whispering the words Oren had taught me. Sleep came quickly, pulling me down into depths more profound than ordinary dreams. I opened my eyes to find myself on a beach unlike any I'd seen before. The sand glittered with tiny flecks of gold, and the water before me shone with an inner light. Stars scattered across the sky in unfamiliar patterns, brighter and more numerous than possible in my world. Oren stood at the water's edge, his back to me. No longer confined to a voice in a shell, he appeared as I'd seen him in my dreams. Tall and powerful, his body both human and somehow more. When he turned, his eyes glowed with the same blue-green light that illuminated the water. Irene. My name on his lips sent ripples of energy across my skin. You came. Did you doubt I would? He crossed the distance between us in long strides. Never. Not since you first heard my voice. When he took my hands, energy sparked between our palms. His skin felt warm, solid, more real than any dream. Where are we? The in-between, not my realm or yours, but a place where we can meet as equals. He lifted one hand to my cheek. Here, I can show you everything you need to know. His lips met mine with a gentle pressure that quickly deepened into hunger. As we kissed, images flowed from his mind to mine. Ancient words of power, the structure of the binding spell, the precise gestures needed to unravel it. But beneath the knowledge ran a current of emotion so intense it brought tears to my eyes. Centuries of loneliness, the joy of finding me, a desire that burned like the sun. We sank to the star-flecked sand, our bodies entwining as naturally as waves meeting the shore. Every touch, every kiss felt magnified, as if our very souls connected through our skin. His hands traced my body with reverence, learning every curve and hollow. When he whispered words against my skin in a language older than humanity, they left trails of light in their wake. Our joining transcended physical pleasure. As our bodies moved in perfect harmony, our minds and spirits merged until I couldn't tell where I ended, and he began. I felt his ancient power flowing through me, mingling with my own untapped magic. Together, we formed something greater than either of us alone, a perfect balance of earth and sea, human and guardian, love and power. At the moment of culmination, the world around us exploded into light. Every star in the sky seemed to pour its brilliance into us, filling us with power that would have been unbearable alone, but felt like completion together. As our breathing slowed, Oren gathered me against his chest. His heartbeat echoed the rhythm of waves against the shore. Now you know everything, he murmured against my hair. The ritual tomorrow night, I said, tracing patterns on his chest. Will it work? He caught my hand, bringing it to his lips. It's never been attempted this way before. The original binding required the sacrifice of several guardians, their life force used to create chains that would hold both me and Thalassos. But we're trying to free only you. Yes, using love rather than sacrifice, connection rather than control. His eyes darkened with worry. But Thalassos will fight the moment it senses the binding weakening. I won't have my full strength immediately, and you'll be vulnerable. I lifted myself onto one elbow, looking down into his troubled face. You fear for me. With every fiber of my being. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. If anything happened to you, nothing will happen, I promised, sealing the words with a kiss. We'll face this together. When I woke the next morning, the shell lay warm against my heart, pulsing with newly familiar energy. I spent the day preparing, gathering the items Oren had instructed me to bring. A vial of my blood, spring water collected at dawn, elements that represented the balance we sought to restore. As sunset approached, signs of Thalassos' growing influence became impossible to ignore. The tide retreated unnaturally far, exposing parts of the seabed rarely seen by human eyes. Fish flopped desperately on the suddenly dry ocean floor. The air grew heavy with ozone and the metallic taste of ancient magic. Officials issued warnings to stay away from the beach, citing unusual tidal activity and unexplained electrical storms. But I slipped past their barriers as darkness fell, carrying my supplies in a woven bag Gran had given me for my 16th birthday. The moon hid its face as planned, leaving only stars to illuminate my path. I waded into the unnaturally calm water at our usual meeting spot. The shell clutched against my heart. Oren, I called softly. I'm here. His voice, when it came, held urgent tenderness. The spell weakens faster than I expected. Thalassos stirs. A tremor ran through the water. When the binding breaks, I'll need moments to regain physical form. Thalassos will wake immediately. You'll have to... Something cut him off. A vibration that shuddered through the water and air alike. Out beyond the breakers, the ocean's surface bulged upward, as if something massive pushed from below. It's happening already. Fear threaded Oren's voice. The binding fails. Quickly, Irene. I began to sing the words he'd taught me, my voice carrying across the unnaturally still water. The shell blazed hot against my skin, light pulsing from within it in time with my heartbeat. Power flowed through me, ancient magic recognizing ancient blood. The ocean roared back toward shore with unnatural speed. I braced against its pull, continuing the song even as water swirled around my waist. The shell grew brighter, its surface becoming liquid starlight under my fingers. A sound like breaking worlds split the night. The shell dissolved into pure light, flowing like molten gold over my hands and into the waves. Brightness flared, blinding. Then darkness crashed back as something erupted from the deep. Thalassos rose like a mountain of nightmare, its body a writhing mass of scales and teeth, and too many eyes. Each eye was larger than a house, filled with malice older than life itself. Its roar shook the earth, and I felt its ancient hatred focus on me with crushing weight. Irene. The voice came from beside me now, accompanied by a warm hand clasping mine. Don't look at it. Look at me. I turned. Oren stood in the waves, his form coalescing from sea spray and starlight. He was more beautiful than even my dreams had shown, tall and powerful, with skin like polished pearl and hair the deep blue-green of ocean depths. His eyes held the same warmth I'd heard in his voice, now filled with desperate concern. The binding spell, he said urgently. We have to... Thalassos struck. A tentacle thick as a redwood tree swept toward us. Oren pulled me close, raising his other hand. A barrier of blue light sprang up, deflecting the blow, but the impact sent us stumbling. I'm not strong enough yet, Oren gasped. The old spell. I can't. I squeezed his hand, feeling our connection pulse with power. Then we'll make a new one. Together. Understanding flowed between us. This wasn't about recreating the ancient binding. It was about forging something new. Something born of love rather than sacrifice, of choice rather than fear. We began to sing, our voices weaving together in perfect harmony. The magic rose around us, different from before, warmer, brighter, alive with possibility. Thalassos roared in fury, but this time the sound held uncertainty. Light spiraled out from where our hands joined, wrapping around the ancient creature in streams of gold and blue. Where the old binding had been chains, this was more like a web, flexible, organic, allowing movement while preventing harm. Thalassos thrashed against the new constraints, its rage palpable in the churning waters. But as our song reached its crescendo, something shifted in the creature. Its movements became less violent and more rhythmic. Its eyes, no longer filled with hatred, pulsed in time with the waves. The final note faded into the night air. Thalassos sank slowly beneath the surface, not trapped but transformed, bound not by force but by harmony, becoming part of the ocean's eternal dance rather than its destroyer. I turned to Oren, breathing hard. He gathered me close, his skin warm despite the cool water surrounding us. The scent of him filled my lungs, salt and storms and something ancient as the tides themselves. You found another way, he whispered against my hair. You saw what all the guardians missed. We found it together, I corrected, looking up into eyes that held entire oceans. Love is stronger than fear. Connection more powerful than control. His smile was like a sunrise over calm seas. When he kissed me, I tasted salt and magic and joy. The waves swirled around us, singing their ancient songs. But now I understood them completely. They weren't just songs of power or magic. They were songs of love, of connection, of the eternal dance between land and sea, between two hearts. What happens now? I asked when we finally parted, still held safe in his arms. Now we rebuild what was broken. Oren's fingers traced my cheek with wonder. The guardianship of the oceans needs to be restored. Balance must be maintained. And us? His eyes softened. We belong to both worlds, you and I. Neither fully of land nor sea, but together. He pressed his forehead to mine. Together we can bridge the divide. I thought of Gran's cottage, standing empty since her passing. We could use my grandmother's cottage as our base, heal the damage Thalassos caused, and teach others to hear the ocean's songs. Oren lifted my hand to his lips. Your grandmother always believed that humanity could learn to live in harmony with the sea again. She saw you as the beginning of that change. As dawn broke over the horizon, we walked from the water, hand in hand. The shore bore evidence of the night's events. Strange patterns in the sand, shells arranged in spirals that hummed with quiet power. But the sea itself had calmed, returning to its natural rhythm under the watchful presence of its guardians. Now, I walk the shore each day with Oren beside me, teaching others to hear the ocean's songs. Some nights, we sleep in Gran's cottage, wrapped in one another's arms beneath quilts she sewed with symbols of protection. Other nights, we swim beneath the waves, exploring Oren's realm of endless blue. Our love bridges worlds that have been separated too long. With each person who learns to hear the shell's songs, the divide narrows further. The ocean, with all its vast mystery, sings of possibility, of connection across any barrier, of love that recognizes itself in any form. And in the deep, Thalassos swims in its new form, no longer a creature of chaos, but a guardian of the ocean's most ancient secrets. It too sings now, a song of transformation, of darkness, finding its place within the light. Together, Oren and I guard the balance, not through force or fear, but through love and understanding. Our souls, entwined across lifetimes, form the strongest magic of all, a power that flows like tides, eternal and ever-changing, a whispered promise carried on every wave that reaches the shore. I held the gold necklace between my fingers, tracing the circle of the empty charm as rain streaked down our bedroom window. Anderson was already asleep beside me, his breathing steady and deep. I wondered what it would sound like to hear him whisper goodnight to our child. Funny how time shifts when you're waiting for something. In my 20s, days rushed by like a fast-forward sequence. But now, at 35, each month stretched into what felt like a year. The calendar on my phone marked cycles of hope and disappointment in neat little blocks. Red X after red X. "Your numbers look fine," Dr. Miller had said that morning, tapping her pen against my chart. Sometimes these things just take time. Time. We'd given it 3 years. 3 years of vitamins and temperature charts and perfectly timed moments that should have been about love, not planning. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. Outside, our neighborhood glowed amber under the streetlights. Somewhere in those houses lived the family we'd always imagined becoming. The one with the swing set in the backyard and crayon drawings on the refrigerator. "Can't sleep?" Anderson's voice rumbled sleepy and warm behind me. I turned. Even in the dim light, I could see the concern in his eyes. My husband of 6 years still looked at me like he had on our first date, like I was the most precious thing in his world. "I keep thinking about that call yesterday," I admitted. "Yesterday?" Michelle's voice crackling through the phone. "My cousin knows this adoption counselor in Texas. Just thought I'd mention it." Anderson sat up, reaching for my hand. "We said we'd take a break from all this." "I know. We'd tried everything. The herbs my sister-in-law swore by, the acupuncturist who promised to unlock my womb. The fertility treatments left me bloated and weepy. Even a consultation with a surrogacy agency felt too clinical, too removed from the magical process of creating life. Each failure chipped away at something inside me. Not my love for Anderson. If anything, watching him hold friends' babies with such gentle care only made me love him more. But my confidence in my own body, in our path forward, had taken a beating. "We don't have to think about it now," Anderson said, pulling me back to bed. I curled into his familiar warmth. But that night, I dreamed of a baby with Anderson's dimples and my laugh. When I woke, the necklace was still in my palm, the charm still blank. I almost deleted Michelle's follow-up email. Twice. My finger hovered over the trash icon for what felt like forever before I finally opened it. Her name is Sarah Martinez. She works with birth mothers across the Southwest. I didn't want to push, but I thought you should at least have her contact info. No pressure, just an option. Just an option became my mantra that week. While Anderson was at work, I looked up Sarah's website. Her photo showed a woman with kind eyes and graying temples. Testimonials filled the page with phrases like, "Found our forever family," and "Dreams came true." I'd sworn off reading adoption success stories. They felt like salt in an open wound. But something about Sarah's approach seemed different. Her bio mentioned intuitive matching and following the heart's guidance. I copied her number into my phone but didn't call. Instead, I tucked it into my nightstand drawer, next to the empty charm necklace. 2 weeks later, Anderson found me crying in the shower. Not the quiet tears I tried to hide at work or during dinners with friends who announced pregnancies with ease. Full, body-racking sobs that left me gasping. "Hey." He was still fully dressed, water soaking through his shirt as he gathered me against his chest. "What brought this on?" "I saw her today, the baby from my dream. A little girl at the coffee shop with your exact dimples. Her mom was telling her a joke, and she laughed. My words dissolved into fresh tears. Anderson turned off the water and wrapped me in a towel. We sat on the bathroom floor, and he rubbed my back as I finally spoke the truth we'd both been dancing around. I don't think my body is going to give us a baby. The words hung between us, stark and final. Okay, he said simply. Okay? Jessica. He tilted my chin up. I married you, not your theoretical ability to reproduce. You. If you want to explore adoption, we will explore adoption. If you want to stop trying altogether and just be us, that's okay too. But this... He touched my chest, right over my heart. Is what I need. You and I, together. That night, I pulled Sarah's number from the drawer. Sarah had a way of talking that felt like drinking warm tea. Her voice carried comfort through the phone line. Adoption isn't a backup plan, Jessica. It's a different road to the same destination. Family. She explained her process. I work with expectant mothers who've chosen adoption. They're not giving up babies. They're creating families. The connection happens naturally. I don't force matches. When it's right, everyone feels it. Have you matched many families recently? 3 this year so far. Each one came together uniquely. She paused. Are you and Anderson together on this? Yes. He's been amazing through everything. Good. Because when the right situation comes along, you'll need to move quickly. And it will come. I have that feeling about you too. Over the next month, Anderson and I filled out paperwork, attended virtual seminars, and slowly opened ourselves to a different dream. We talked about race and culture, medical histories, and open versus closed adoptions. Each conversation peeled back another layer of what family could mean. I started carrying the necklace everywhere, rubbing the smooth charm between meetings at work. Hope wasn't something I'd felt for so long that I'd forgotten its texture. This felt like the start of that return. Sarah's call came on a Tuesday in February. Snow was falling, the kind of perfect flakes that make the world look like a snow globe. Jessica, I have a situation that might be unique. My heart pressed against my ribs. Tell me. There's a young woman in Austin, Texas, Daniela. She's 23 and already has a 3-year-old daughter. This pregnancy was unexpected. She's in school, working part-time. The baby's due next month. I grabbed a pen. Okay. She specifically asked for a couple who've been through fertility struggles. She said she wants parents who'll never take parenthood for granted. The words struck me silent. Daniela grew up in a big extended family, Sarah continued. She wants open communication, letters, photos, maybe occasional visits. The father, he's not involved. She made this choice alone. That evening, Anderson and I read Daniela's letter together. Her handwriting was careful, deliberate. I believe every child deserves parents who are ready for them. Not just financially or practically, but emotionally. You've waited so long for this gift. I think you'll treasure it in a way others might not. She'd included a sonogram photo. The tiny form looked like a dream beginning to take shape. We should go to Austin, Anderson said. Really? If she's willing to meet us, yes, absolutely. We flew out the following weekend. Texas in February carried a different kind of chill. Clear skies, but biting wind. Sarah had arranged for us to meet Daniela at a quiet cafe near her apartment. She was smaller than I expected, with long dark hair and an oversized sweater that couldn't hide her pregnancy. Her 3-year-old daughter, Sophia, colored intently at the table. Hi, I managed, my voice catching. Daniela stood to greet us. Up close, I could see the determination in her eyes. This was not a young woman making decisions lightly. Thank you for coming, she said. I know this is unconventional. We talked for 2 hours. She asked about our jobs, our families, and our house. She wanted to know about Anderson's golf playing and my terrible cooking attempts. Normal questions that painted a picture of the life she wanted for her child. Sophia had Anderson's attention within minutes, chattering about her dolls and her favorite cartoons. Watching them interact, I felt something shift inside me. Not just hope, but rightness. "I should tell you," Daniela said, stirring her hot chocolate. "I've met with 2 other couples." My stomach dropped, but neither felt like family. "You do?" She looked directly at me. "I see it in how you look at him when he's talking to Sophia. How he looks at you when I mention the baby's kicks. You two have love ready to expand." That night in our hotel, I called Sarah from the bathroom while Anderson showered. "She's considering us," I whispered. "She's doing more than that," Sarah said gently. "She's chosen you. She just needs time to be certain." The certainty came 3 days later. Daniela's text arrived while I was making breakfast. "It's you two. When can you come back?" The next month blurred into beautiful chaos. We flew to Austin twice, meeting Daniela's family, attending doctor's appointments, and decorating the hotel suite nursery style for our expected stay. Daniela opened up more with each visit. She admitted her fears about open adoption. Would seeing the child grow up with us be too painful? Would we eventually shut her out? "We won't," Anderson promised. "You're giving us the most precious gift. That doesn't end when she's born." "She?" Daniela smiled. "Did the doctor tell you?" "No, but Jessica has dreams. They're usually right." I felt my cheeks warm. "Not always." "With this one?" "I think so," Daniela said, placing her hand on her belly. The baby kicked right then, strong enough that I could see the movement. Daniela took my hand, pressing it to the spot. The flutter against my palm sent tears to my eyes. This wasn't my body creating life, but somehow it felt like my child saying hello. On March 15th, at 3:47 a.m., my phone rang. Daniela's voice trembled with excitement. "It's time." We'd been in Austin for 3 days already, just waiting. The drive to the hospital happened in fast forward. Anderson held my hand so tight I lost circulation, but I didn't tell him to loosen his grip. Daniela labored for 8 hours. We stayed in the waiting room, pacing, praying, calling family with updates. When a nurse finally called us back, my legs felt disconnected from my body. "She wants you there for the birth," the nurse explained. "She says you're family." Watching a child enter the world is indescribable. Hearing her first cry, seeing the crinkled face and tiny fists, I understood why people call it a miracle. Daniela looked exhausted but radiant. "Do you want to hold her?" she asked me. I could only nod. The nurse placed the baby in my arms. She was smaller than I expected, her skin impossibly soft. When her dark eyes met mine, something clicked into place. A puzzle piece I didn't know was missing. "Hi, Hope," I whispered, testing the name that had lived in my heart all this time. Anderson wrapped his arms around us both. I felt his lips against my temple as he whispered, "Thank you," meant for Daniela, for God, for the universe itself. We spent 3 days at the hospital with Daniela. She breastfed Hope those first days, wanting to give her that start. It was intimate and complex and beautiful. We talked about the future, the letters and pictures, the yearly visits that Daniela wanted. "I need you both to promise something," Daniela said on our last night in Austin. She'd just finished feeding Hope and passed her to Anderson. "Promise you'll tell her this story. Not just that she's adopted, but how much love and thought went into creating her family." "We promise," we said together. Before we left, Daniela pressed something into my hand, a tiny envelope. "Open it when you get home." Home. We'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, but reality surpassed every dream. Walking through our front door with Hope felt like the house exhaled for the first time. The nursery we'd painted last month glowed in the afternoon light. We placed Hope in her crib, watching her sleep after the journey. She looked so small against the white sheets, but also perfectly where she belonged. That evening, while Anderson dozed on the couch with Hope on his chest, I remembered Daniela's envelope. Inside was a note. Jessica, you mentioned a necklace with a charm you wanted to engrave. I hope you find the perfect name. Love, Daniela. I reached for the necklace, then searched my jewelry box for something. Finding it, I smiled at my own forgetfulness. We'd been carrying Hope's name all along. But I didn't engrave Hope on the charm. The next day, I took it to the local jeweler. When he asked what I wanted engraved, I thought of Daniela's letter, of all the twisting roads that led us here, of the way hope transforms into something real when you refuse to let it go. Hope, I said, in script lettering. 6 months later, we returned to Austin for our first visit. Daniela looked healthier, stronger. She held Hope with practiced ease, pointing out family resemblances. She has her father's nose, but your smile now. It was true. Hope's smiles had become generous, full-face expressions that lit up rooms. That night, after Sophia and Hope were asleep, the three of us sat on Daniela's back porch. Cicadas hummed in the darkness. Thank you, I said. Not for the first time, but with new depths of meaning. For choosing us, for trusting us. Daniela nodded. I see it in how she looks at you, like you're her whole world. That's what I wanted. Anderson leaned forward. And we see it in how you look at her too. She has so much love surrounding her. We talked until midnight about everything and nothing, Hope's favorite foods, our families, Daniela's plans to finish school. Love took shapes I hadn't expected, complex, layered, expanding to include room for everyone. Flying home, I held Hope against my shoulder as she fussed sleepily. My fingers found the necklace, tracing the single engraved word. Hope. Not just what I'd carried through the hardest years, but what we'd built together, all of us. What we'd continue building with every letter, every visit, every moment of honoring the love that created this unlikely, perfect family. The roads hadn't been straight or easy. They'd wound through heartbreak and healing, through choices and chances we never could have imagined. But here we were, flying home with our daughter, connected by invisible threads to others who shared in our joy. Hope delivered on her promise. She hadn't just brought us a child. She'd shown us that family isn't bound by biology or predetermined paths. It's forged in the courage to stay open, to wait, to believe that somewhere out there, your people are waiting too. As Hope settled deeper into sleep, I looked out the airplane window at the lights scattered across the dark landscape below. Somewhere down there, in one of those glowing points, was our life, waiting for us to continue writing its story. Every heartbeat, every breath, every moment moving forward was an answer to prayers whispered in the dark. Hope had a name now. She had a home. She had parents who'd spent years learning that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings arise from the surrender of original plans. I pressed my lips to her downy head. She smelled like Daniela's lavender soap in our house, and endless possibilities for the future. This was our forever. This was our family. This was hope, given form and breath in the most beautiful name of all. Hope. Nestled at the end of a quiet cobblestone street, where golden lamplights flickered like fireflies in the dusk, stood Willoughby's whimsical bakes. The scent of cardamom and vanilla drifted through its weathered oak door, curling around wrought-iron lampposts and mingling with the morning mist that cloaked the city. Mr. Willoughby, a stout man with kind eyes and flower-dusted sleeves, had been the keeper of its magic for as long as anyone could remember. His hands, marked by decades of kneading dough and shaping pastries, moved with practiced grace as he infused each creation with its own unique enchantment. The crackle of fresh-baked bread crust, the silky smoothness of chocolate ganache, the delicate snap of perfectly laminated croissants. Each sensation carried possibilities wrapped in butter and sugar. The shop itself breathed with ancient magic. Copper pots hung from rough-hewn wooden beams, their surfaces reflecting the dancing flames of the brick ovens. Shelves of ingredients lined the walls, jars of spices that whispered secrets, bottles of essences that captured memories, and bags of flour that sparkled in the early morning light. Rose Bennett pushed open the door one misty autumn morning, the brass bell above chiming a melody that seemed to echo her heartbeat. The warm air enveloped her, carrying the scent of cinnamon and possibilities. Her artist's fingers, stained with watercolors from countless unfinished paintings, trembled as she approached the counter. Mr. Willoughby looked up from where he was dusting powdered sugar over a tray of lemon-filled pastries, each one glowing with a soft inner light. His eyes crinkled at the corners as he studied her, the paint-splattered smock, the uncertainty in her stance, the way her gaze drifted over the displays without really seeing them. "Ah," he said softly, reaching beneath the counter. The sound of rustling paper filled the quiet shop as he wrapped a delicate pastry. "This one has been waiting for you." The cinnamon brioche felt warm in Rose's hands, its surface dusted with crystallized sugar that caught the light like morning frost. As she took her first bite, the world shifted around her. Colors intensified, sounds sharpened, and suddenly she was standing in an art gallery, but not one she recognized. Paintings lined the walls, each one alive with color and emotion. They were her works, she realized with a start, but not ones she had painted yet. In the center of the room stood a man she didn't recognize, his dark curls touched with silver at the temples. He moved from painting to painting with careful consideration, his fingers hovering just above the canvases, as if he could feel the emotions woven into each brushstroke. The vision faded, leaving Rose standing in the bakery with the taste of cinnamon and possibility on her tongue. Mr. Willoughby had already turned back to his work, humming softly as he shaped another loaf of bread. That evening, as Rose cleaned her brushes in her tiny studio apartment, the memories of the vision lingered like the last notes of a favorite song. The next morning found her back at Willoughby's, drawn by something stronger than hunger. Each day brought a new pastry, each one carrying a different glimpse of what could be. Her paintings hanging in galleries around the world, her name spoken with reverence in artistic circles, and always, always, that mysterious man with the silver-touched curls. The seasons turned, marked by the changing light through the bakery's stained glass windows. Winter painted the cobblestones with frost, and still Rose returned, though the visions had begun to feel more like a beautiful torture. Her paintings felt flat and lifeless compared to what she had seen. On a bitter December evening, when the wind howled through the narrow streets and snow fell in thick flakes, Rose sought refuge in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She had wandered into the contemporary wing, lost in thought when a familiar scent stopped her in her tracks. Cinnamon. "Beautiful work, isn't it?" a warm voice asked, and Rose turned to find herself face to face with the man from her visions. His name was Aaron Blake, he told her, and he was the museum's new curator of contemporary art. His eyes widened with recognition as she introduced herself, and soon they were sharing stories of mysterious visions seen in the steam of fresh-baked bread and the swirl of cappuccino foam. When Aaron mentioned his daily visits to a certain whimsical bakery, Rose felt her heart flutter with understanding. Their courtship unfolded like a painting coming to life, each day adding new layers of color and depth. Aaron's appreciation for art matched Rose's passion for creating it. He saw the beauty in her unfinished works, the potential in her rough sketches. Under his encouragement, and Mr. Willoughby's continued magical guidance, Rose's art transformed, becoming more vivid, more alive, more like the paintings she had seen in her first vision. Mr. Willoughby watched it all with quiet satisfaction, his hands constantly at work creating new enchantments in sugar and flour. He knew that his magic didn't create destinies. It merely illuminated the paths waiting to be discovered. The real magic happened in the quiet moments, in shared conversations about color theory over fresh-baked scones, in the way Aaron's eyes lit up when Rose showed him a new painting, in the simple act of two souls recognizing themselves in one another. Spring returned to the cobblestone street, and with it came Rose's first gallery showing. As guests filled the space, discussing her work over glasses of champagne, Rose stood back and watched her vision become reality. Her paintings lined the walls, alive with color and emotion, each one more vibrant than the last. Aaron moved through the crowd just as she had seen him in that first vision, his pride evident in every gesture. Later that night, they walked hand in hand to Willoughby's, where Mr. Willoughby waited with a box of fresh pastries, 2 of everything, perfectly paired. The scent of cinnamon and magic swirled around them as they sat at the small table by the window, planning their future over cups of steaming tea and plates of enchanted desserts. The bakery continued its work, sending out little pieces of enchantment into the world. Some found their courage, others found their purpose, and a few, like Rose and Aaron, found both. The bell above the door chimed its welcome song day after day, and Mr. Willoughby continued to bake, weaving magic and hope into every creation, knowing that sometimes the greatest enchantment of all was simply showing people what was already in their hearts. And somewhere in the city, in a sunlit studio filled with the scent of paint and possibility, Rose's newest canvas waited, ready to capture the magic that had brought her here. Magic that tasted of cinnamon and dreams, of courage and love, of a future waiting to be painted one brushstroke at a time.